Chapter 315, Dark Magnetic Noxious Mist. Chapter 315, Dark Magnetic Noxious Mist. Editor. The Sun Island. Serene and Xiaoxinyan went to a 3-story stone house. In front of the house, the flowers and plants were luxuriant. The spiritual aura was dense, and some sunflowers were luminescent under the moonlight, which was quite peculiar. Xia Shenchuan was standing among those sunflowers, clasping his hands behind his back, looking at the moonlight as if he was considering something. Being the master of the Xia family, Xia Shenchuan had been highly respected in the Endless Sea. However, on this Sun Island, no one had paid him a visit. The other forces didn't seem to know that the headmaster of the Xia family had also come to the Sun Island. It was impossible to know when the people's hearts would be cold or warm. The Kiara Sea had been screwed, the evil wonderland had been treacherous, and the Yang family had retreated. It was truly hard for the Xia family to firmly withstand themselves from all the schemes that were being plotted against them. Without the Yang family supporting their backs, as well as the fact that their great master had often pitched himself into insanity in the other people's eyes, the Xia family wouldn't have ever been able to rise again and return to the top 15 of the most powerful forces of the Endless Sea. Therefore, when the Xia family had closely approached the sea near the Wind Cloud Island, both the Heaven Lake Divine Land and the Gu family, initially, hadn't considered it a big deal. They even wanted to bribe the remnants of the Xia family's forces in helping them deal with the oncoming invasion of the demon dwellers. The ambitions of the Xia family had soon sunk into the bottom of the glass. If it wasn't because Shi Yan had intimidated Gu Xiao and Yu Qin to make each of them give out 5 islands which had then become the Xia family's places of refuge, the internal conflicts of the Xia family would have been more serious, which probably would have led them to their dissension. Xia Shenchuan knew that although dangers were set everywhere in the Kiara Sea right now, it also hid the opportunity for the Xia family to take back their power. He hadn't known how to achieve it before. However, after Shi Yan had returned to the Kiara Sea, making Gu Xiao and Yu Qin submit, he seemed to have sensed something and decided to hold on to the Yang family closely, betting on this game. Shi Yan, the Xia family has placed our bets on you. I hope you will not let me down. Xia Shenchuan mumbled to himself with full of emotions inside his heart. He looked at the bright moon in the sky while being overwhelmed with many complicated thoughts. It has been 5 years since Shi Yan first arrived at the Kiara Sea. Previously, Xia Shenchuan hadn't known anything whatsoever about Shi Yan, so it was only natural that he basically hadn't laid his eyes on a little rascal like him. However, until now, he still didn't know what kind of tricks Shi Yan had to have consecutively defeated Gu Xiao and Yu Qin. Even the sun god Tang Yuanand seemed to respect him as well. That was why he had assigned his man to deliver the invitation to the Xia family to come here in order to discuss the plans of how to deal with the demon dwellers. Although Xia Shenchuan didn't exactly know what Shi Yan had in his hands, he could guess that Shi Yan should have had a slew of violent powers. As the master of the Xia family, he clearly knew the current dispositions of the other leaders in the Endless Sea. Thus he had no doubts about Gu Xiao and Yu Qin's position. Being able to have made Gu Xiao and Yu Qin submit and willingly give out 5 islands, Shi Yan definitely possessed a tremendous power that had deeply frightened them. Otherwise, Gu Xiao and Yu Qin would have never accepted or compromised with the Xia family. 5 years after the Yang family had fled, the fact that Shi Yan was able to have achieved this level alone had made Xia Shenchuan see him differently and reevaluate him again. Such a little rascal that no one could see through. Xinyan being with him might be not a bad thing. Xia Shenchuan spoke to himself. Grandpa. While he was contemplating, Xia Xinyan's gentle voice came up from the yard. Xia Shenchuan raised his head up, seeing his granddaughter walking in together with Shi Yan. After 3 years without seeing Shi Yan, Xia Shenchuan realized that Shi Yan was sturdier as his aura was more mature. The power, which was as tremendous as that of a tiger, emitted from his body while he was walking. He indeed had the sense and vigor of intimidation that had made the other people admire him. While quietly nodding with a smile, Xia Shenchuan said with a moderate voice, "Little rascal, you are here." Shi Yan beamed out a broad smile. "I am so glad to see you." When I had returned to the Endless Sea, People said that the Kiara sea had fallen. I even thought that I couldn't have ever seen you again. The smile on Xia Shenchuan's face stiffened. He shook his head, released a sigh, and said, "If it wasn't because we had fled in time, you couldn't ever have met me again." Korf korf. Around 50 meters away, Yu Zhongfeng dry coughed, then giggled while waving at Shi Yan and asked, "Can I go in there?" Shi Yan was surprised and didn't know whether he should have laughed or cried. It was unknown as to why Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yiqi kept following him. Although he had told them to stop, they still persistently clung to him. Shi Yan didn't know what to do with them. He was thinking if he should irritate and force them to back off. These two people? Xia Shenchuan didn't seem to understand anything either. He swept his eyes to those two people and asked Shi Yan, "Are they your friends?" "Ha ha ha, we are certainly his friends." Yi Zhongfeng nodded nonstop and quickly answered with a smile even before Shi Yan could have opened his mouth. "Very good friends. I have heard that the Xia family's master has such a good memory. As I now have a chance to see you, your reputation is well merited indeed." Shi Yan knitted his eyebrows. Xia Xinyan glanced at the two of them and said with a low voice, "Can you just go away? Wait until we finish talking, then you can return to fool around." On the way back, Yi Zhongfeng kept teasing her and Shi Yan. Although she didn't really bother much about it, as Yi Zhongfeng sometimes blethered something gross, she couldn't stand but be irritated with this guy who had a charming fair-skinned face and was as beautiful as a woman. She also cursed at him at the same time. "There's something I really want to tell you." He could see that other people didn't seem to welcome him, but instead, they even wanted to send him away. He hastily raised his hands and said with a serious gesture, "It is very important. I think the master of the Xia family will absolutely be very excited." Xia Shenchuan was astonished. "What is it?" I have come here with good intentions and hoping that we can build up a friendly relationship." Yi Zhongfeng revealed a faint smile, moved forward, then said with a somber face, "I have heard that the former master of the Xia family, Xia Jingho, had cultivated and reached the first sky of the spirit realm. However, because there was something wrong with the reincarnation martial spirit that has now led him to be in a state of being half-conscious." "Is this true?" Xia Shenchuan tightly knitted his eyebrows, looking at him and said, "The rumor is true." That year, in the Endless Sea, Xia Jingho was also a famous person. If it wasn't because of some troubles happening during the cultivation and the fact that he was often in a state of insanity, the Xia family wouldn't have had declined this much. Xia Shenchuan silently released a sigh. As hearing Yi Zhongfeng mention about this, Xia Shenchuan's face became awry. Yi Zhongfeng nodded, looking at Shi Yan, and then said with a smile, "I can help the predecessor Xia Jingho's mind recover to its normal state." Shi Yan's eyes instantly brightened up. Xia Shenchuan and Xia Xinyan were trembling, looking at Yi Zhongfeng with a doubtful face. Lin Yiqi was also bewildered for a while before speaking with surprise, "Little Bai, how long have you been here? How come you seem to know things more than the old master? He has warned me that I should not let you cause any disturbances. What do you want to do?" Yi Zhongfeng giggled while shrugging, then said, "The old master has said that I can do whatever I want as long as I don't violate the rules." Xia Shenchuan didn't understand what these two people were talking about. His eyes sparked a strange light. He looked straight at Yi Zhongfeng and said with a trembling voice, "Little rascal, don't say it too certainly like that. There are several things that are not as easy as you have imagined." Shi Yan talked to Yi Zhongfeng with astonishment. "Don't speak thoughtlessly if you are not sure. You guys don't believe it?" Yi Zhongfeng looked like he was suffering unjustly. He explained, "I only have good intentions. I will be the best alchemist in the future. The pellets that I refine can even revive the dead, let alone help others regain their consciousness." His boasts made Xia Shenchuan and Shi Yan be even more suspicious. Lin Yiqi pursed her lips contemptibly. "Even the old master is scared of the pellets that you've refined. I hope that you don't kill anyone." "Shi Yan, who are these two people after all?" Xia Shenchuan asked with doubt. Shi Yan was dazed for a while before explaining, "I have just met them." Xia Shenchuan's face got stranger. "Previously, I used to belong to the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. But I have been already expelled, so it is obvious if you don't know me." Yi Zhongfeng slightly laughed. The storage ring on his finger suddenly flared up, and a jade vase then emerged in his hand. Inside the vase, there was only one pill which was as big as a hazelnut. The pill itself was densely dotted with numerous tiny holes, where many rays of light splendidly radiated. I give you this vain spirit pellet. If you let Xia Jingho take it, I assure that he will no longer be half-conscious nor insane. Yi Zhongfeng smilingly said while handing the jade vase to Xia Shenchuan. Xia Shenchuan received it while his head was still in a daze. He strangely stared at the jade vase, carefully checking the vase with a suspicious face. Can this pellet really solve my father's problem? Of course, Yi Zhongfeng confidently said. Lin Yaqin's eyes beamed out peculiar lights. While she was gazing at Yi Zhongfeng as if she was staring at a monster, she uttered, "Little Bai, has your brain been damaged? Why do you give this vain spirit pellet to the others? Do you know how many medicinal herbs that the old master has consumed to refine the vain spirit pellets? How many demon crystals have been used for this? 58 kinds of medicinal herbs, 3 demon crystals of the 8th level beasts, 20 demon crystals of the 7th level beasts." Yi Zhongfeng said loud and clear as if he was counting all the properties that he had in his house. He shrugged and said, "I also know the process to refine the vain spirit pellets. It is just because my cultivation base is still low that I cannot start to make it yet." After Yi Zhongfeng had finished his words, both Shi Yan and Xia Shenchuan were shaken. "If you have known about it so well, how come you are still giving it to him?" Lin Yaqin asked with a confused face. "Yi Zhongfeng, were you a member of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland?" Shi Yan contemplated for a while before bursting into laughter. He said, "I don't like to be fooled." This, Yi Zhongfeng's smile stiffened. He awkwardly rubbed his hands while shamefully explained, "Frankly speaking, I am the expelled disciple of the Spirit Treasure sect. The Spirit Treasure Wonderland in the Endless Sea was originally only one of the Spirit Treasure sect's branches. You are not from the Endless Sea?" Xia Shenchuan's face instantly changed. "That's right." Yi Zhongfeng nodded. "I had crossed the dark magnetic noxious mist in coming here." Xia Shenchuan's and Xia Xinyan's faces turned totally pale after hearing it. They stared at Yi Zhongfeng like they were facing a monster. The dark magnetic noxious mist? Shi Yan was astonished, asking Xia Shenchuan with his knitted eyebrows, "Do you know that place?" Xia Shenchuan's eyes looked complicated. He nodded and said, "I have heard that the easternmost end of the Endless Sea is the dark magnetic noxious mist. According to the legend, behind the dark magnetic noxious mist is the center of the Grace mainland. For thousands of years, many high-class warriors of the Endless Sea have wanted to cross the dark magnetic noxious mist, but it seems that no one has been successful yet. Most of them have died inside the mist, including the God Reem warriors." Shi Yan was frightened. Chapter 316, Hidden Matters. Chapter 316, Hidden Matters. Editor. Even God Realm warriors cannot cross the dark magnetic noxious mist. Shi Yan was startled. His eyes were flooded with astonishment, bewilderedly looking at Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yaqin at the side. Xia Shenchuan estimated the vain spirit pellet in his hand. His face displayed the caution as if the vain spirit pellet suddenly became heavy. Lin Yaqin didn't really care. She stood there, looking casually from east to west and didn't seem to pay attention to the others' conversation. Yi Zhongfeng revealed an improper smile. However, his eyes seemed to contain some hidden meanings. "Have you really crossed the dark magnetic noxious mist?" Xia Shenchuan contemplated for a while before asking again with a more somber face. Yi Zhongfeng nodded and smiled. "How could you cross the dark magnetic noxious mist?" Obviously, Xia Shenchuan didn't believe him right away. Even the God Realm warriors couldn't have crossed that place. What did he have to be able to do so? I can't tell you this." Yi Zhongfeng revealed a broad smile and deliberately said, "About this, our old master actually has some tricks. It will be nearly impossible for ordinary people to survive after entering the dark magnetic noxious mist. However, we are a little bit more special. Moreover, the old master has been living there all year round. He obviously isn't scared of the anomalies of that place." "Your master has been living inside the dark magnetic noxious mist all year round?" Xia Shenchuan couldn't help but scream with astonishment. Lin Yiqi's face was still incurious. She seemed to feel that Xia Shenchuan was way more surprised than he should have been. That's true. Yi Zhongfeng nodded. Our old master has been living there. Both of us have also spent most of our time there. Shi Yan tightly knitted his eyebrows. He suddenly had a suspicion that this little rascal probably had ulterior motives in coming to see him. Why have you come to the Endless Sea? Xia Shenchuan asked. It is boring there, so I have gone out to find some fun. Yi Zhongfeng comfortably replied. As he saw that everyone all showed their suspicions, he awkwardly smiled and added, I've come to the Endless Sea to find something as well. Find something? Shi Yan squinted and coldly asked, Find what? Hehe. Yi Zhongfeng just laughed without replying. He obviously didn't want to answer it. Shi Yan frigidly harumphed and didn't know what to ask for now. Do you need the Vein Spirit pellet or not? Yi Zhongfeng seemed to be impatient. If you don't need it, then give it back to me. This kind of toy is not cheap. I am still a little bit regretful. Xia Shenchuan tightly closed his hand at once. His appearance looked like he would never let go of it at any cost. He gritted his teeth and resentfully said, I need it. Tell me, what is your condition? Condition? Yi Zhongfeng hesitated for a while with his strange eyes before bursting out laughing and saying, Presently, let's not discuss the condition. Wait until Xia Jingho recovers, then I will come and talk to him. It's useless to talk to you now. You can't understand nor possibly make any decisions by yourself. Xia Shenchuan was angry. His face didn't look good. I am just telling the truth. Yi Zhongfeng didn't care about it. Instead, he smiled and waved at Shi Yan while speaking, All right, I will not disturb you anymore. Wait until the meeting on the island is over, and I will come and find you. I have come here just to give Xia Master the Vein Spirit pellet, nothing else. Under the astonished eyes of Shi Yan and Xia Shenchuan, Yi Zhongfeng stretched his arms pulling Lin Yiqi and walked out without caring if that girl had agreed or not. After leaving, Lin Yiqi's eyes were half closed, forming a new moon while amiably looking at him. Little Bai, why did you give the Vein Spirit pellet to that old man? That old man is only at the Earth realm. How much value does he have? Many people know how precious the Vein Spirit pellet is. If the old master knows that you have impulsively given it to the others, you are going to have a hard time. Yi Zhongfeng coldly harumphed and said, Do you think I was willing to do it? In fact, the old master has told me to give this spirit pellet to the master of the Xia family. Perhaps the old master has refined this Vein Spirit pellet specifically for Xia Jingho. Lin Yiqi was bewildered, suspiciously shook her head and said, How come? According to you, Xi Jingho is only at the first sky of the spirit realm and is often in his state of being insane. How could the old master become so preoccupied with him? Xia Jingho used to cross the dark magnetic noxious mist and was one of the very few high-class warriors who had safely gotten out of it. The old master used to meet him inside of the dark magnetic noxious mist that year. Otherwise, Xia Shenchuan wouldn't have been able to know about the dark magnetic noxious mist that much, which has proved that Xia Jingho had told him about this. Yi Zhongfeng seriously said, He crossed the dark magnetic noxious mist? Lin Yiqi's eyes brightened. She seemed just to have figured out something and shouted, That's right. Xia Jingho's insanity is caused by that area inside the dark magnetic noxious mist. You have finally figured it out. Yi Zhongfeng smiled and said, That's why. Lin Yiqi understood and nodded. No wonder the old master has agreed to give him one Vein Spirit pellet. If the Vein Spirit pellet can cure him, then it is surely a blessing in disguise. He will most likely be entering the new realm directly. It can be said that as he could get out of there alive and has also been in this state of insanity for that long, but hasn't died yet, so he is not just a normal man. I think he has soon found something, and if the Vein Spirit pellet can help his mentality regain its normal functions, he can at least enter the second sky of the spirit realm and will perhaps perceive some kind of magic. The thing that the old master wants are the experiences that this guy has been through. It is so. Who are those two people? After Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yiqi had left, Xia Xinyan knitted her eyebrows while asking Shi Yan with suspicion, Is it true that you have just met them? I have just met them. Shi replied with a miserable smile. I didn't expect the situation of what just happened. The identity of those two people is mystical. Moreover, they are not from the endless sea for sure. I have never heard that anyone could live inside the dark magnetic noxious mist before. It is strange indeed. Xia Shenchuan's eyes flared up a strange light while holding the vein spirit pellet. This vein spirit pellet looks like it has some possible effects indeed. Perhaps it will be able to cure the strange sickness that is ailing your great-grandfather. Xia Xinyan's face was excited. If great-grandfather can recover, the Xia family can be freed from the current situation. Of course, Xia Shenchuan replied with a confident face. If your great-grandfather didn't become like this, in the Endless Sea, people like Gu Xiao and Yu Qin would have had to pay their respects in front of him. In the 5 seas, the people who can defeat your great-grandfather is only numbered on one's fingers. Why did he become like that? Xia Xinyan asked with a little bit worry. Every time the reincarnation martial spirit of the Xia family breaks through to the new realm, there is always a high possibility of losing oneself. If so, could it be that I might also encounter it in the future? It isn't similar to your imagination. Xia Shenchuan shook his head. Although our reincarnation martial spirit has the possibility of being possessed by the devil, it is not as serious as you have imagined. No one of the Xia family's ancestors had ever encountered the insanity as your great-grandfather has. So why has great-grandfather been like that? Perhaps it has something related to the dark magnetic noxious mist. Xia Shenchuan's face was heavy, seeming not to be very sure about it either. He told Xia Xinyan the story despite Shi Yan's presence. 50 years ago, when your great-grandfather had just entered the spirit realm, he suddenly wanted to take a risk to barge into the dark magnetic noxious mist. He had stayed there for 9 years before returning. Not long after that, he became like this. Before entering the dark magnetic noxious mist, your great-grandfather was totally normal. I think that something had definitely happened inside of the dark magnetic noxious mist that had made him become like this. Shi Yan's face became horrific. Do the other 2 people know about the story of great-grandfather? Xia Xinyan lucidly thought about this. Probably. Xia Shenchuan was not very certain. I have decided to give this vein spirit pellet to him because the duration that he can maintain his consciousness is getting shorter. If it continues like this, he won't possibly be perspicacious anymore. We have to try even though there is just one thin ray of hope left. Xia Xinyan slightly released a sigh and didn't say anything further. Shi Yan, why did you look for me? After having talked for a while, Xia Shenchuan suddenly remembered that Shi Yan coming here should be for something. He couldn't help but ask. Leave the 10 islands taken from the Gu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land for later. The Xia family's members should go to the Snow Dragon Island. If we can gather our forces, it will be easier for us to support each other. Shi Yan quickly said without wasting any more time. That was what he had wanted to discuss with Xia Shenchuan. Currently, the demon dwellers were storing up and gathering forces in the Kiara Sea. They could have launched their attacks at any possible time. The Xia family was presently in the middle of the Hangluo Sea and the Blackwater Sea, which was a relatively sensitive area. The demon dwellers probably wouldn't have paid attention to it. However, if they did take actions, the Xia family's forces would hardly be able to resist them. Snow Dragon Island. After contemplating for a while, Xia Shenchuan firmly nodded eventually. Okay, I will immediately arrange this after my return. You can transmit the information now if possible. As soon as possible, Shi Yan said. After considering, Xia Shenchuan also thought that the idea was right and said, All right, I am sending the message now. Shi Yan slightly revealed a smile, looked at Xia Xinyan, winking at her and said, Shall we take a walk? Xia Xinyan's face flushed. She stealthily had a quick glance at her grandfather. As she saw Xia Shenchuan seemed not to have any reactions, she then slightly nodded and followed Shi Yan. On the coast of the Sun Island, the ocean breezes were gently blowing. Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan were sitting together on a huge greenstone. Under the chilly moonlight, the 2 of them were watching the sea in the gentle breeze, enjoying the peace that belonged only to the 2 of them for now. Shi Yan slightly stretched out his hand, holding Xia Xinyan's small hand and giggled. Xia Xinyan's face reddened. She threw him a quick glance, struggled a few times, but couldn't get out of his grab. Hence, she stopped struggling and said with a weak voice, "Time flies. It has been 3 years already." That's right. Honestly, in recent years, we haven't had many chances to meet each other. We have always been in a hurry, having quickly parted after just a short time of being together. It has always been a very long time before we could see each other again. Shiryen released a sigh. I had many thoughts when I had just arrived at the Endless Sea. My cultivation has had big improvements in recent years, but our relationship doesn't seem to have much progress. Shall we change a little bit? Shiryan's flaming eyes fixed on her appealing body. His fervid eyes concealed many inner meanings. Xia Xinyan's snow-white neck slightly reddened. Her eyes were bashful. She blamed him with a low voice. Why do you always have these kinds of things in your head? Please, Shiryen giggled, forcefully embraced her waist and pulled her charming body closer to his. Chapter 317, The Covenant. Chapter 317, The Covenant. Editor. Xia Xinyan bungled as her face blushed and her delicate body was struggling. She was embarrassed and resentful at the same time. Shiryen chuckled, didn't care about her wriggle. His arms were like a chain tightly wrapping around her body. The more she struggled, the tighter the shackle would be. The fresh, orchid-like fragrance from her wonderful body spread out, which refreshed Shiryan's mind and brightened the broad smile on his face. This rascal, the beautiful girl with the orchid aroma breaths, was timid. Her mesmerizing gesture churned up the beast's thoughts in his mind like the waves surged up and crashed ashore. You and I should have been closer long time ago. Since you have appeared in the sacred stone square, I have determined to have you for myself sooner or later. Shiryen buoyantly laughed out loud. His 2 arms suddenly embraced her small boneless waist tightly, lifting her up and placing her on his lap. She was a little bit scared. Her face blushed so much that could captivate other people. She struggled even harder. A happy smile was blossoming on Shiryan's face, displaying an extreme passion. The beautiful woman's rounded butts were vehemently wriggling on his thighs, which increased his pleasure much more. While struggling, her firm butts moved from side to side, rubbing his thighs, which inflamed the beast's lustful desire inside him. He nearly couldn't control himself and wanted to occupy her right away. After Xia Xinyan's butts had wiggled for a while, her face was so red as if it was about to bleed. Her translucent eyes were flooded with romantic interests, glistening like pearls, which was incredibly mesmerizing. Why do you stop moving? Shiryen whispered into her ears, teasing her. The more you struggle, the more pleasure I have. Why don't you continue? Such a scoundrel. Xia Xinyan quietly gritted her teeth. She slightly leaned her body forward to avoid his teasing and preventing his mouth from touching her. You're mine. Shiryen suddenly lowered his tone, uttering some words which sounded like a sincere truth. Shiryen's big arms embraced her body and then forcefully pulled it towards him, placing her fragrant back against his chest. He then defiantly kissed on her long white neck. She slightly shivered as if there was an electric current running all over her body. Her mind and her body were numb with no strength left as her elegant face became dazed. Please, don't, she chirped unconsciously. Her powerless body leaned against his chest. The body's strength seemed to disappear gradually. Shiryen ignored it. His tongue like a small snake happily wandered on her reddened silky white neck. The pleasure was surging up more and more while the flame inside his eyes deflagrated. Don't do it. Xia Xinyan's body was totally flabby. In her struggle and confusion, the longingness was somehow exposed, but she was still weakly resisting it. Shiryen still ignored it. His hand placing on her belly was slowly moving up, grabbing the round-up mountain there. Once his hand had grabbed that firm round breast, Shiryen's brain was violently agitated. As his body's heat increased 10 more times, his breath also became heavier. Ah! Her charming body suddenly trembled, her beautiful eyes flared up a horrific light. She instantly used all of her strength to escape from his embrace, flying straight up to the sky. Under the cool moonlight, her eyes were glistening with water, and her face was terrifying red that could even frighten other people. She resentfully looked down at the scoundrel below, angrily staring at his private. Shiryen regained his consciousness, looked at the erection between his legs. He then giggled and shamelessly said, "That's a normal reaction, just a normal reaction. You are even more perverse than I have imagined." While gritting her teeth, she goggled, gazing at him. Her usual leisure and elegance had totally vanished. Her body was now so appealing that could drive men crazy. She said with a blushing face, "I am not well prepared yet. Your mind is full of bad things. I need to consider more." Shiryen slightly burst into laughing, then spoke up, "Haven't you ever said that if I could defeat you, you would follow me? Have you defeated me yet?" The beautiful woman said with a faint smile. "Try me." Shiryen revealed a smile while standing up. His natural imposing body emitted a mighty aura when all kinds of powers inside his body massively spread out. He said, "Little beauty, it seems that I have to win to let you be convinced. If so, let me give you a lesson then." As soon as finishing his words, he flew up to the sky like a lance. Like lightning tearing off the sky, he quickly darted beside Xia Xinyan in a blink. Dozens of beams of sparkling light span around his fingers, turning into a net that pounced upon Xia Xinyan. More dangerous than before indeed. The beautiful woman revealed a smile, slightly nodding. She deliberately clasped her hands in front of her chest, then abruptly separated them. Many green lotuses suddenly discharged from her palms. Each lotus had both big and small petals. The light which was revolving inside the lotus was like a gem under the sunlight. The lotuses adjoined with each other one by one, forming a bigger green lotus. The net of light, which had been created from the condensation of Shiryan's profound qi, directly collided with that room-sized green lotus, but was then struck down into pieces by that powerful lotus. Without waiting for his reaction, the pistil of the lotus opened up like a big mouth swallowing him. In a short moment, his body was covered by many lotuses. Tens of thousands of streams of strange fresh energy were binding around his body like a rope. He looked like being confined inside the pistil of a huge green lotus. Although he tried struggling hard, he couldn't get rid of that huge lotus, which was formed by many different small lotuses. The green lotus gradually pushed down, binding him, then brought him out and drowned him in the sea. Splash! As soon as Shiryan's body entirely sank into the sea, it slightly trembled. That green lotus energy wrapping around him was keeping him away from the sea water outside, but the energy inside the lotus was still increasing. Shiryen then quietly used the power of the rampage, the ice-cold flame, the 10,000-year earth flame, the profound qi inside his body, and his stiffened muscles to wipe out the lotus's strength that was chaining his entire body. The beautiful woman's charming face turned pale a little bit. Her perfect body slowly descended. While deliberately hovering around in the air 3 meters away from the top of his head, she spoke up with a smile. "Guh, you still can't defeat me yet." Shiryen shook his head while smiling and saying, "I remember the covenant at the beginning is not like this. You have used the reincarnation martial spirit to enter the sky realm directly. Of course, I couldn't win. If you don't use the reincarnation martial spirit, only base on your true cultivation base of the third sky of the earth realm, it is not too difficult for me to defeat you." Xia Xinyan mischievously smiled, exposing her glamour. She then imitated his words, "Girls are like that. God has given them the stubbornness." "Is it so?" Shiryen was as mute as a fish. "All right, I don't play with you anymore. If it continues like this, you will get injured for real." Xia Xinyan slowly took a deep breath. Her white hands slightly separated. The green lotus that was wrapping around Shiryan's body opened instantly, turning into different small lotuses massively flying out, and then disappeared into her palms. "You will not encounter any side effects when using the reincarnation martial spirit?" Shiryen suddenly said. "Maybe." Xia Xinyan retrieved the green lotus, then sat down again on the big green stone, swinging her long legs while the flap of her clothes was fluttering. "I should not use it for so long, otherwise I might suffer the side effect. Anyway, the reincarnation martial spirit is much more stable than before. It's already very good. You have had a big progress after many years." Shiryen was soaking wet, walking over from the sea, then sat down next to her and held her hands once again. Xia Xinyan threw a glance at him, implicating that he should not mess things up again, then said with a low tone, "Being able to have the current accomplishment should be probably related to the spiritual power that you have sent into my brain before. Honestly speaking, if I haven't gone through those things, I wouldn't be able to reach the current realm." After a short pause, she continued, "I haven't entered the nirvana realm yet because I haven't condensed enough the profound qi. Regarding the realm, due to the characteristic of the reincarnation martial spirit, I have never worried about it. In half a month max, I certainly can enter the nirvana realm. Presently, I can vaguely feel that the spiritual power can somehow help me complete the transformation of the sea of consciousness." "Wonderful," Shi Yan sincerely said. "Thank you." Xia Xinyan turned her head around looking at him and gently said. Shi Yan dragged a mischievous smile out of the corner of his mouth. "I don't care when you thank me just in words. If you really want to thank me, give me a kiss." Her beautiful face blushed again. She didn't reply while keeping her head bowed. After a long while, when Shi Yan was about to give up the intention, she suddenly moved closer, and her pink lips like the petals of the cherry blossom kissed on his left cheek as fast as the electricity. She then stood up, embarrassedly turned her back toward him, walking away while mumbling, "I really shouldn't be together with you for so long. The longer I stay with you, the better chance the scoundrel will occupy everything of mine. Such a complete pervert. That year, in a brothel, while I was unconscious, you surely didn't act decently. Hehe, you understand me so well indeed." Shi Yan revealed a satisfactory smile while standing up. He remembered the things in the past and then said without being ashamed, "In the brothel, I used to kiss you. You just didn't know it. If I had known it, I would have already killed you." The beautiful woman turned her head around, tightly closing her hands, gesticulating for a while, but she wasn't really angry, as if she had soon known that he would have that kind of answer. "If you had killed me that time, how could you realize my good features?" Shi Yan laughed out loud and leaped up like a panther. He then reappeared next to her just in a blink, naturally holding her hand, and said, "Human life is miraculous. That year, you had a high and noble status, like an untouchable angle in the sky, which brought people the inferiority without daring to pursue you. By that time, although I already wanted to have you for myself, I didn't think I could do it. You were just a beautiful, ambiguous dream to me. Right now, you are not qualified enough to pursue me yet." Xia Xinyan glanced at him with a smile and said, "Wait until you enter the sky realm and be able to defeat me. I will agree to let you have me." Shi Yan's face was agitated. He asked, "Your words are true?" "Sure." Her eyes were sparkling and mesmerizing. Her beautiful smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "I will not let you wait for long." Shi Yan laughed out loud and said with his confidence, "I have never felt this confident like right now. The immense endless sea will spread out the legend of mine sooner or later. After my disappearance, the legend about me will not be forgotten with time." As Xia Xinyan was bewildered looking at that man who was arrogantly blustering, her heart was vibrating nonstop. She felt a little bit dizzy when hearing those boasting words. The arrogance and ambition of a man before being capable of doing it was somehow a fatal poison that attracted women. Chapter 318, Understandable. Chapter 318, Understandable. Editor. Shi Yan took Xia Shenchuan and Xia Xinyan to the manor where the three people of Yi Tianmo's group were temporarily lodging. After Xia Shenchuan had walked around the manor, he secretly cursed the three-god sect that they were partial, treating him unfavorably. Everything in this manor was much better than in his accommodation. When Xia Shenchuan met Yi Tianmo, Yimeng, and Kaba, he was immediately astonished seeing them for the first time. Although the three of Yi Tianmo's group didn't disclose any powerful aura of the God Realm warriors, being the master of a family, Xia Shenchuan could easily realize the true cultivation base of those three. Like an obvious thing, Xia Shenchuan had realized that their cultivation base should probably reach the God Realm. Three God Realm warriors. Xia Shenchuan kept being suspicious, didn't know what kind of relation between them and Shi Yan was. As Yi Tianmo didn't want to frighten other people, he didn't call Shi Yan master in front of others. However, one could still figure something out if noticing their commotions. Xia Shenchuan was a cunning old man. He had already figured out the situation and was constantly lavish with his praises. From those three people, Xia Shenchuan knew that Shi Yan had a very high position in their hearts. Until this instant, he realized why the Three God sect was giving Shi Yan such a distinguished treat like this. Compared with these Three God realm warriors, even the Three God sect couldn't have this kind of powerful forces. The Three God realm warriors followed Shi Yan to come here and even obeyed his orders. Needless to say, everyone could understand what it meant. Xia Shenchuan secretly decided that regardless how the future would be, he had to cling on to Shi Yan tightly, absolutely wouldn't betray him. Although he was still young and had just been in the Endless Sea for 5 years, after the Yang family had retreated, he still seduced the hearts of the three people of Tian Mo's group without the Yang family's support. Shi Yan had proved his own ability. Shi Yan arranged the accommodation a little bit. He told Xia Shenchuan that this manor was very spacious with many chambers, so he could freely go around and find a place for himself to rest. Xia Shenchuan beamed a smile and then left without informing his granddaughter. As soon as Xia Shenchuan had left, Shi Yan was about to ask the three people of Tian Mo's group to see how many people had come here while he had been absent. However, Chao Jilan unexpectedly returned with her lustrous appearance. She was wearing a blue dress. Her body was gentle and slender. The crystal adornments attached to the flap of her dress were producing a tinkling melody that was very pleasant to people's ears. Her charming face wore a faint smile which agitated other people's hearts. This pretty woman seemed to forget completely what had happened at the hot spring. She was casually walking in. She rolled her eyes and then stopped on Xia Xinyan's body. The smile at the corner of her mouth was even broader. Xia Xinyan's eyebrows arched while she slightly harumphed, gazed straight at her without any fears. The beauty of each of these two women was in no way inferior to the other one, and their auras were equivalent. Both of them possessed the mesmerizing appearances that all the males were longing days and nights, even in their dreams. In the pearly radiant room, their bewitching beauty seemed to overwhelm all the pearls and gems. Even Shi Yan also had to compliment their elegance and beauty secretly. The beautiful eyes of the two beautiful girls shot out some lights which collided with each other in the air, igniting dangerous fires. "Why are you still coming here?" After being bewildered for a while, Shi Yan sat down, signaling the three people of Tian Mo's group to leave and discuss the important matters later. The three of them were sensitive, strangely looked at the two beautiful women who now looked like the two hens staring at each other. They secretly smiled, nodded their heads and left. "I'm staying here." Chao Jilan raised her picturesque eyebrows, gently stroking her hair which got stuck in her ears. She then giggled and said, "We all stay here, so why can't I come back?" Shi Yan was mute, slightly shaking his head. Moreover, Chao Jilan stopped for a while, finding a chair to sit down, ignoring Xia Xinyan's hostile look. She then gave him an affectionate glance and said, "Didn't you say that I am your slave? As I am yours, I obviously have to follow my master. Furthermore, you have placed a formation technique on my body. How can I dare to run away?" Xia Xinyan's beautiful eyes flared up a ray of anger, instantly glanced at Shi Yan with the manner as if she wanted to bring an army to investigate him. It's not like what you are thinking." Shi Yan was a little bit disconcerted. He opened his arms and said, "I am innocent. I have never touched her. At first, I kept her because I needed her for something, but then I didn't do anything eventually." Xia Xinyan was still secretly resentful inside, but she no longer showed it on her face. She leisurely walked over and sat down on the left side of Shi Yan, then proactively stretched out her hand holding Shi Yan's hand, placing at the other end of the table. She coldly looked at Chao Jilan while speaking with a low tone. "As you have admitted your slavery status, you should have a little understanding of being a slave. Bring me a cup of tea." Shi Yan dry coughed while his eyes were strange, thinking to himself that this girl was not just simply laid back. "Bring tea?" Chao Jilan's face was a little bit shaken as the smile at the corner of her mouth gradually faded away. Her pink lips curled up and sarcastically said, "Since I was little, I have never served tea to anyone, let alone another girl." Not to mention the fact that the Xia family's fame has been written off on the ranking list of the Endless Sea. Even when the Xia family is the most powerful, you are not qualified enough to ask me to do anything. Understand? Haven't you just boasted that you are a slave? Xia Xinyan squinted, her closing hands instantly tightened, which made Shiyan a bit worried. But not the slave of yours, Xinyan. Chao Zhilan didn't care to look at her but instead picked up a cluster of grapes and attentively peeled them. That's all right. Xia Xinyan dragged a smile out of the corner of her mouth as if she had already had a plan. She then gently looked at Shiyan, her jade-like hands slightly swung while she said, Shiyan, can you tell your slave to bring me a cup of tea? Her eyes were full of lights. She gritted her teeth with the begging and threatening appearance at the same time. It's simple. Shiyan burst into laughing while feeling that this scene was quite interesting. His other hand pointed at the left cheek and said to Xia Xinyan, if you do like what you have done earlier, I will do as your request. Ha ha, pervert. Her face instantly blushed while she secretly cursed him. She aggressively squeezed Shiyan's hand, resented that she couldn't crush it into pieces. Chao Zhilan revealed an exciting smile as if she was very interested in it. She giggled while provokingly looking at Xia Xinyan. I am looking. Xia Xinyan's face was even reddened. She rampageously gazed at Chao Zhilan, then shifted her eyes looking at Shiyan with a threatening look. Shiyan suddenly became joyful as he felt that she was so mesmerizing now. He urged, just one kiss, as being a female master, you should be generous. I think she doesn't dare to do it. Chao Zhilan beautifully smiled and stood up. Her body flashed up and reappeared next to Shiyan in no time. Under the unbelievable eyes of Xia Xinyan, Chao Zhilan daringly kissed Shiyan right at the place that Xia Xinyan had kissed him earlier, leaving a faint pink stain on his face. Shiyan was bewildered like a wooden rooster. Xia Xinyan's countenance instantly changed. I am an obedient female slave. After kissing him, Chao Zhilan glided away like a cool breeze. Her gentle voice came up from afar, Master, I'm going to take a shower first. If you have any request, you can always come to see me. In terms of some aspects, I might be better than the Yin Wonderland's disciples. In the satisfied giggling sounds, her delicate body quietly left in a blink without leaving a trace. After having stepped out of the room, the calm and brave face of Chao Zhilan suddenly blushed. She held her face with her watery eyes while stopping behind the rockwork. Her mind was stirred up, her face was reddened, and she mumbled to herself, this is the first time I did it. Oh, I might be wrong. Shiyan was sitting in a daze with a strange face. He didn't expect that girl was that daring. She had dared to do it in front of Xia Xinyan without feeling ashamed. Xia Xinyan's charming face didn't look good at all. Her beautiful eyes were overwhelmed with anger and hatred, looking at him. This matter, isn't she famous for being flirty? Shiyan smiled and said with an awkward face. How come she didn't feel ashamed like that? I have come to the Endless Sea for quite long, but I have never seen any women who are as shameless as she is. As far as I have known, there is none of any bad rumors about her in the Endless Sea nor her unclear relations with any man. Xia Xinyan said with hatred while the rage had obviously surged up inside her heart. Unless you have secretly had some kind of affairs with her, how could she be that daring? There has been something between you two. Is it true? No, there is nothing. Shiyan shook his head. Xia Xinyan was flooded with rage. She suddenly stood up, angrily staring at him, then glided away and left. Shiyan rubbed his nose, didn't stand up to chase after her. Instead, he used his soul to transmit the message. Not long after that, 3 beams of light flashed up. The 3 people of Tian Mo's group appeared in front of Shiyan. Those 2 girls are both good. Ye Meng chuckled. When Chao Zhilan was leaving earlier, she looked quite panicked. It seems that she was also aroused by something. It's sure that this was the first time she did it. You are truly blessed. Shiyan burst into laughing. The 3 of you didn't just hide somewhere and peep at me. Tian Mo, Kaba didn't deny it. No, it's not like that. Ye Meng constantly shook his head. With our current cultivation level, we can hear almost everything even if we don't want to. In a short distance like this, and your voices were not low, there is no way that we couldn't hear it. Even blocking our ears would not help at all. Tian Mo and Ka Ba also nodded, confirming that Yimeng's words were the same as their explanation. Shi Yan was not angry anyway. He said, "Beautiful girls naturally stand against each other. These two women are not an exception. Presently, this place is bustling like a festival. Ambassadors from different forces have continued coming here, clearly saying that they would like to see you or the three of us. However, we have refused them all." Tian Mo started talking about the main matter with a serious face. "A person with the extraordinary soul level has secretly broken into here. He has even fought with us for a short while before safely leaving. His cultivation is exceptional." "What?" Shi Yan's eyes became frigid. "Do you remember his spirit aura?" "We couldn't figure out." Tian Mo shook his head. "We don't know what kind of secret technique he used to be able to hide even his host's soul. If I meet him again, I will hardly recognize him. It seems that this person doesn't have good intentions. Master, you have to be careful. I am afraid he might want to take actions with you." Shi Yan's face slightly changed. Chapter 319, Possessed by Devil. Chapter 319, Possessed by Devil. Editor. The three people of Tian Mo's group had left. Shi Yan was sitting alone in the middle of the room, slightly closing his eyes and being silent like a monk in his meditation. Shi Yan didn't mind about the person that Tian Mo had mentioned, although he had been a little bit astonished. Many high-class warriors from everywhere were gathering on the Sun Island, and some God Realm warriors were among them. When those warriors appeared on the Sun Island at the same time, the island would obviously no longer be peaceful anymore. As he had just come to the Sun Island today, he had already killed several people and had become a star after the fight with Mangu. Heroes from everywhere on the island had already noticed him and been even more interested in the cultivation base of the three people of Tian Mo's group. The Yang family had offended many people in the Endless Sea during their glorious time. As soon as Shi Yan had appeared, he had forcefully made the other forces to pay for what they had done before and intimidated Yu Qin and Gu Xiao. In their eyes, this action of his was similar to the previous defiance of the Yang family. Obviously, some people who were hiding in the dark weren't happy with his way of doing things. Thus, the fact that someone couldn't help but take actions was also understandable. As what he had seen, the fact that someone couldn't help but bring the whole army here to question his guilt was something that was likely to happen. He, of course, also believed that no one would be willing to be involved in life and death battles given the current tense situation. Exactly speaking, they would not risk their lives to fight against the three people of Tian Mo's group. After all, the demon dweller's intimidation was still there. Before the demon dweller's menace disappeared, no one would dare to ignore it. Shi Yan didn't care about the current situation as he had nothing in the Endless Sea. If something happened, he could simply dust off his ass and leave. He didn't care about the Endless Sea situation, whether ordinary people lived or died, nor the resources on the island. Leaving the Endless Sea, he still could live a good life like he had had before, let alone the fact that he didn't have much attachment to the Yang family. Without any attachment, he wasn't scared at all. That was why he dared to fish in troubled waters at this critical point of time. The war between the demon dwellers and the high-class warriors of the Endless Sea was just the training for him to gain more valuable experiences that could help him enter the Nirvana realm or even the Sky realm. The special feature of the mystery martial spirit in his body was that it would be improved faster during battles, and the powers that it could absorb would also be bigger. He felt regretful that he couldn't stir up the Endless Sea sooner. The more warriors that fell, the more treasures he would be able to obtain. Seen from this aspect, he was actually one of the major factors that led the world into complete chaos. Only when he was not scared and had no attachments would he be able to freely do whatever he wanted without having to be responsible for any consequences. Many thoughts zoomed over in his mind. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He then closed his eyes and started to meditate. Numerous negative feelings flooded the meridians inside his body. Under the effect of the mystery martial spirit, the aura was running in his meridians with breakneck speed, purifying the dead auras that he had absorbed today and turning them into some kinds of peculiar energies that brought him power. Serene was quietly sensing them, being immersed in himself to understand the strange transformation in his body. Although there were still two kinds of chaotic negative auras penetrating, they were in the range that he could bear. His mind maintained to be in the conscious state at all times, without having any signs of losing his mind. It seems that the spiritual chi of other people was not enough for me to use, Serene thought to himself. The people who had died today were only at the Earth realm and the disaster realm. After their spiritual chi had been absorbed, the purification speed in Serene's meridians was significantly faster. That was also why the negative auras couldn't have affected him much. Entering the peak Earth realm, whether it was his mental state or his body's extreme endurance level, both had a huge breakthrough. At this realm, his body could now endure more of the counterattacks. While Serene was quietly evaluating and sensing the transformation inside his body, his spirit was very calm as his sea of consciousness was restful without surging up. Not long after that, those familiar peculiar energies suddenly flowed out of his meridians. Being in shock, he quickly controlled that peculiar power and was conducting it to the beam of profound chi light in his body. During this time, he always paid attention to the beam of profound chi light on his belly. In that marvelous world, the profound chi had an unusual shape of an ancient tree piercing through the sky while its branches and leaves were full of profound chi and energy, becoming more and more luxuriant. He vaguely speculated that when the profound chi gathered more and more, this ancient tree started to have miraculous transformations in every 15 minutes. He even recognized that when the ancient profound chi tree had the transformation was also the point of time when he would break through to the nirvana realm. Therefore, he had been continuing condensing the profound chi in the past few days, gathering more of the sky and earth aura to pour in. Needless to say, the peculiar power inside the meridians in his entire body was extremely useful. It helped the profound chi grow. Thanks to this peculiar energy, his profound chi had rocketed several times. He believed that if he could conduct this energy that was staying hidden in his meridians into the ancient profound chi tree, that this ancient profound chi tree would have some critical transformations. The thing that he wanted the most was to pour this peculiar energy into the star martial spirit on his chest. However, it was useless to pour that peculiar energy into the star martial spirit before knowing the secrets of the star martial spirit. His mind flickered. He immediately activated the soul consciousness and hid it in the moving mystical flows of power in an attempt to control and conduct them to the beam of profound chi light in his belly. However, when he started doing that, his mind was suddenly agitated. Something was moving in his sea of consciousness. This kind of vibration made his mind tremble. The muscles on his body were shrinking. He suddenly fell off the chair amid the room while his body kept shaking violently and made it look like he was having a seizure. It was extremely strange. In the sea of consciousness, the host's soul was spreading out numerous soul fibers that were connecting with the sea of consciousness to control its vibrations. While his mind was empty, a miraculous illusion, which was like as if he was floating in the cloud, suddenly appeared, drifting about along with the howling wind. The chaotic thoughts in his brain seemed to have completely been wiped out. He didn't think of anything as it seemed that he was now entering some kind of marvelous realm. His body was subconsciously shaking. Following this tremor, the mystical strength that came forth from the meridians in his entire body turned into countless tiny dots of light and was slowly running to his right arm. His mind was as empty as the ethereal realm. He knew the moving direction of this mystical energy flow, but he couldn't have any reactions. At this moment, his body didn't seem to belong to him anymore. His consciousness could no longer control his body, and the ability to control his body seemed to have temporarily been captured by different kinds of invisible energies. All of the mystical energies that were spreading out from his meridians were now quickly flowing towards his right arm. When he assumed that the transformation of his body was about to end, a stream of mystical power pierced into the beam of the profound chi light and was now entering the ancient tree that had been created by the condensation of the profound chi. Boom! The mystical strength seemed to burn numerous splendid lights. Instantly, the luxuriant ancient profound chi tree radiated many glittering lights, which were like thousands of tiny rivers, then spread out of the tree trunk altogether and disappeared into the vessels on his belly. More than thousands of sparkling profound chi fibers massively flew out, flooding towards his right arm. Shiryen was going through some kind of miraculous transformation that was quietly happening. The profound chi of his entire body then spread out from his belly. The trunk of that ancient tree gradually shrank, slowly became gloomy, and eventually disappeared. The sparkling profound chi from that ancient tree trunk turned into thousands of rays that were flowing along his vessels towards his right arm, blending with the mystical energy inside there, and then pouring into the muscles of his right arm. The flesh in his muscles vibrated nonstop. The profound chi and the mystical power constantly poured in and fused with each other. That vibration had been spreading all over his body. 639 muscles on his body also seemed to be shaking, which gave him the feeling that numerous currents of electricity were running through his body. His entire right arm suddenly shot out dark purple rays, which were getting more illuminant together with the vibrations of his muscles. As the profound chi of the entire body had been completely drained, the light of the profound chi on his belly also became gloomier. The ancient profound chi tree had vanished as if it had returned to the nihility. It would require another condensation of the profound chi to appear again. The profound chi and the mystical energy fused with each other and then completely disappeared into his right arm's flesh. This fusion filled his muscles with full of energy that could make the other people trembling in fear. His entire body was agitated while the amplitude of the vibrations was getting bigger. He gesticulated in the middle of the room as if he was unconsciously possessed by the devil without knowing what it is that he was doing. Boom! An explosion came up in his head. His wriggling body suddenly ceased as if it was being controlled by the immobilized body technique. Although his body was motionless, it still maintained the peculiar pose. At this moment, his brain didn't have any thoughts left. Only his right arm was still dazzling and was quietly going through some peculiar transformation. Dawn was coming. The figures of two people quarreling emerged outside the manor. Xia Xinyan was sitting in the garden since earlier. As soon as seeing those two vacillated in front of the gate, she couldn't help but stand up with a forced smile. She looked at them from afar with her knitted eyebrows, then asked, "What are you coming here for?" Yi Zhongfeng went inside while pointing at the gate guards and speaking, "I told them I know you guys, so they let us in." Lin Yaqin followed him unceremoniously. "Why are you here?" Xia Xinyan asked again. "The meeting won't start until tomorrow. There's the busiest auction fair today, which is organized by the Spirit Treasure Wonderland after having the permission of the Three God Sect. It is said that there will be many extraordinary spirit treasures being displayed in the auction fair. I want to ask Shiryen to accompany us, and also I want to discuss something with him." Yi Zhongfeng giggled and said. After going around in the manor, Lin Yaqin said with astonishment, "This place is much better than ours. If I knew you were here, I would have come here last night. I will tell Shiryen about this. We will come and stay here tonight," Yi Zhongfeng said with a smile. Lin Yaqin nodded, implicating that it was how it should be. In a small charming pavilion staying hidden in the forest, the window on the third story suddenly opened. Chao Jilan opened up her arms, her waist bent backwards like a willow while her beautiful breasts were thrusting out. "Oh!" Lin Yaqin shouted with surprise as if she had just found a new continent. She pointed towards Chao Jilan from a distance and said, "Why is she here?" Yi Zhongfeng was a little bit bewildered before bursting into a strange laughter, constantly nodding and complimenting. "This little rascal Shiryen is really dangerous. I admire him now." Xia Xinyan's face was not good, as her cold eyes shifted over there and asked, "Do you know her?" "No, we don't." Yi Zhongfeng shook his head. "We just met her yesterday." Lin Yaqin looked toward there, then looked at Xia Xinyan. As she seemed to understand something, she clapped her hands while talking with a big smile. "I know. You two are competing for a man? That is interesting." Xia Xinyan was embarrassed, angrily staring at her. "Where is Shiryen?" Yi Zhongfeng asked. "Don't know." As her rage hadn't gone yet, she was still crabby when mentioning about Shiryen. "Perhaps he will be going out soon." After hearing that, Yu Zhongfeng and Lin Yaqin didn't pay much attention. They talked to her while waiting. In the big room, the three people Yi Tianmo, Yimeng, and Ka Ba were looking at Shi Yan, who was motionlessly and unconsciously lying down on the ground with somber faces. What happened? Ka Ba's face was confused. We were constantly vigilant last night. We didn't detect anyone nor any souls breaking in. How come it is like this? Old E, did you find something abnormal last night? Yimeng asked with a worried face. No. Yi Tianmo shook his head while speaking with a heavy voice. Only someone who has a higher realm than ours could cross our soul defensive formation. Otherwise, there is no way that we couldn't detect anyone. But there shouldn't be anyone with that level on this island. So, how about this? Ka Ba asked with fear. Perhaps something happened while he was cultivating. Yi Tianmo had a closer look at Shi Yan, quietly urging his soul consciousness for a while before speaking. It's all right. The sea of consciousness of Master is totally normal. Even the host's soul is safe. It is just that the host's soul seems to be stuck in some kind of miraculous realm, which brings people an uncatchable feeling of emptiness. That might be some kind of cultivation technique. Yimeng couldn't help but walk forward, stretched out his hand placing on Shi Yan's chest, launching the power to check a little bit. He then said with the unchanged face, the profound qi has completely vanished. What? At this moment, Yi Tianmo's and Ka Ba's faces changed dramatically. They hurriedly walked over to check and realized that his profound qi had truly died out mystically. How come? The three of them exchanged glances with complicated faces, didn't know how to handle this matter. Is it because he had fought with someone for the whole night yesterday that consumed all of his profound qi? Yimeng said with uncertainty while helplessly rubbing his head. In this spacious place, if he had fought with someone, how come we didn't know it? Yi Tianmo coldly harumphed and took a deep breath. His soul continued searching further, slowly going into the host's soul inside Shi Yan's sea of consciousness. However, as soon as his soul entered Shi Yan's sea of consciousness, the five devils who seemed to have been originally in a deep sleep suddenly leaped up altogether. The five flows of devilish auras burst out from the five devils' bodies. In the middle of many horrendous waves of souls that could wrench the other people's hearts, the five devils stormed towards Yi Tianmo's soul, which had just entered. Yi Tianmo's face quickly changed. He hastily retrieved his soul consciousness. Chapter 320, Investigating. Chapter 320, Investigating. Editor. As soon as Yi Tianmo had retrieved his soul, the five devils stopped chasing after it. They didn't get out of the sea of consciousness and restfully stayed inside. Shi Yan still maintained his strange motionless posture as if he was in some sort of a trance. Although his sea of consciousness was still vibrating, his breath was normal. Except for the fact that all of his profound qi had been entirely lost even though his body didn't have any abnormalities. Yi Tianmo's face displayed a little surprise and became heavier after having retrieved his soul. How was it? Ka Ba and Yimeng asked at the same time with suspicious faces. There are some problems. Yi Tianmo stretched his hand, placing it on Shi Yan's hand, transmitting the profound qi into his body. The profound qi-like sensitive, subtle fibers slowly flew around inside Shi Yan's vessels within his chest and gradually spread out all over his body. However, when Yi Tianmo's profound qi circulated to Shi Yan's right arm, it encountered layer upon layers of obstacles. The profound qi that he had released was somehow being blocked by numerous walls, making it impossible to penetrate inside. Yi Tianmo's profound qi continued being transmitted, groping along the vessels to spread out all over Shi Yan's body. Except for his right arm, other places inside his body was ventilated and uncluttered. As he had figured this out, Yi Tianmo thought for a while before continuing transmitting several more of the profound qi fibers towards Shi Yan's right arm. 7 flows of the profound qi scattered and busted in the invisible walls at the same time. Boom! A deep explosive sound reverberated from inside Shi Yan's arm. The dark purple lights were moving on his arm. In that strange vibration, Yi Tianmo's profound qi that had just stormed and exploded, and was completely swallowed up, leaving no trace. Yan's arm shot out a flow of peculiar aura toward Yi Tianmo's hand. Yi Tianmo's face changed in fear. He quickly retracted his hand and slightly shouted, "It's strange." Yimeng and Kaba was astounded and urgently asked, "Old Yi, what happened?" "Nothing." Yi Tianmo released a sigh and helplessly said, "It appears that I couldn't wake Master up. I don't know why his current symptom is similar to possessed by the devil. However, after thinking more carefully, it doesn't seem right. Perhaps due to some secret technique cultivation, he has turned to be like this." After listening to Yi Tianmo, Yimeng and Kaba didn't say anything further. Yimeng's and Kaba's knowledge of the different kinds of forces were not as profound as Yi Tianmo's. Thus, they knew that they couldn't really help or give any input. The three of them were contemplating, looking at Yan with their knitted eyebrows. They felt helpless right now as they had no solution for this situation. Xia Xinyan, Yi Zhongfeng, and Lin Yiqi had been waiting for Yan for a long time but still didn't see Yan show up yet. Thus, they couldn't help but go and look for him. As soon as they entered the room, seeing Yan's stiff body on the ground, they all screamed out terrifyingly. The three people of Yi Tianmo stood around Yan, preventing anyone from coming closer. Even Xia Xinyan was stopped as well. Xia Shenchuan also arrived right after he had been informed about this. He strangely looked at Yan before looking at the three people who were standing around him while asking suspiciously, "What happened?" Yi Zhongfeng, Lin Yiqi, and Chao Jilan were also full of doubts. Yan had been still fine the previous day. How could he have become like this just after one night? No one could explain. "We came here this morning and had found him in this unconscious state. It was like possessed by devil state." After coldly harumphing, Yi Tianmo told them the truth about what had happened. "I have searched Master's soul and detected nothing abnormal except that the profound qi of his entire body seems to have been completely drained. It is like he has consumed all of his strength after fighting with someone." "How is it possible?" Xia Shenchuan was surprised. This place was very quiet last night. There was no fight for sure. Is it true that he was possessed by the devil? Although everyone was worried, they were not very anxious as they saw that Yan was still breathing and his heartbeat was still normal. However, it was certainly not a good thing if he couldn't wake up. As Yi Tianmo had admitted his helplessness, everyone else also kept their mouths shut. "Let me try." After contemplating for a while, Yi Zhongfeng suddenly spoke up. "Although I don't know what happened to him, with my knowledge of the possessed by the devil state, perhaps I can figure out something." Yi Tianmo tightly knitted his eyebrows. Xia Shenchuan's eyebrows were also slamming together. Everyone knew that Yan and Yi Zhongfeng met each other not that long ago, and thus they couldn't be considered as having a close relationship. If Yi Zhongfeng had some wicked intentions and wanted to take this chance to kill Yan would have no other ways except for death. No one had nodded yet as everyone was carefully considering it. "Let him try. As we have many people, even if he has bad intentions, he will not be able to do it." At the critical point of time, Xia Xinyan spoke up, "It is still better than wasting time. If Yan is really in the possessed by the devil state, we have to come up with a solution quickly." "Is this guy really from the dark magnetic noxious mist?" Yi Tianmo asked Xia Shenchuan after considering for a while. The previous night, the three people of Yi Tianmo's group had had some talks with Xia Shenchuan and gotten some information related to Yi Zhongfeng. The three of them especially paid attention to the center land of the Grace mainland behind the dark magnetic noxious mist. From the talk with Xia Shenchuan, Yi Tianmo had known that Xia Shenchuan was the master of the Xia family, and he had also had a feeling that Xia Shenchuan could have provided him with some useful information. During the conversation with the three people of Yi Tianmo's group, Xia Shenchuan had been surprised as well, as he had remembered the fact that Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yiqi had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He had told Yi Tianmo what he knew. The three people of Yi Tianmo's group clearly paid close attention to this. They had asked many questions about Yi Zhongfeng, and even had the intention that they would have had to question Yi Zhongfeng more in person later. "That's right. He has said it himself." Xia Shenchuan nodded. The eyes of the three leaders of the demonic sound clan, Yi Tianmo, Yimeng, and Kaba brightened up, simultaneously looking at Yi Zhangfeng. Does the center of the Grace mainland have a place whose name is the Heavenly Ancient Mound? Yi Tianmo took a deep breath before asking. Yi Zhangfeng's and Lin Yiqi's faces changed dramatically. You know about the Heavenly Ancient Mound? A heaven light seemed to flare up in Yi Zhangfeng's eyes. The Heavenly Ancient Mound is one of the 3 dead territories. It is very famous as well as mystical. It has been said that the Heavenly Ancient Mound has always been sealed and that no one could enter. How could you know of that place? After the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group threw him a quick look, they quietly nodded, indicating that they had confirmed Yi Zhangfeng's identity. You can try now. Don't do anything stupid. Yi Tianmo didn't reply to Zhangfeng's question. Instead, he just gave a narrow access and told Yi Zhangfeng, be careful. Don't use the soul to approach his sea of consciousness. Otherwise, the soul that you release will not be able to come back. Moreover, the abnormal thing in his body was on his right arm. If you want to search, aim for that target. Yi Zhangfeng gazed at him and asked again, how can you know about the Heavenly Ancient Mound? From the ancestors' scripture. Yi Tianmo replied after contemplating for a while. Yi Zhangfeng's eyes brightened, carefully looking at the 3 of them. He seemed to have figured out something, but he didn't say anything further. He walked over and stayed next to Shiryan. After that, he stretched out his hand holding Shiryan's arm. A fireball suddenly shot out from Yi Zhangfeng's palm. The flames were like many scales covering his palm and the back of his hand. In just a blink, Yi Zhangfeng's hand now looked like it was wearing a yellow glove. The flames kept dancing nonstop as if there was a life joyfully cheering on his hand. The faces of the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group turned chalky white. They couldn't help but take a few steps backward and hoarsely screamed out loud with astonishment, Heaven Flame. The 3 people Chao Jilan, Xia Xinyan, and Xia Shenchuan also quickly moved backwards in shock as they were scared that the Heaven Flame would touch them. No worries, I can perfectly control this Heaven Flame. I won't let its heat affect anyone. The faces of the 3 leaders of the demonic Sound clan were not quite good. They urgently used their powers to check and realized that there was no heating aura of the Heaven Flame in the room. They were secretly surprised and were strangely looking at Yi Zhangfeng. The Heaven Flame's heat was incredibly terrifying. Being able to release the Heaven Flame and oppress all of its aura at the same time, Yi Zhangfeng had clearly reached the exceptionally marvelous realm in using the Heaven Flame. They understood that Yi Zhangfeng was much better than Shiryan in terms of using and controlling the Heaven Flame. Chao Jilan was frightened. Her beautiful eyes were full of astonishment while she secretly guessed Yi Zhangfeng's status. On the contrary, as Xia Shenchuan and Xia Xinyan had already known Yi Zhangfeng's identity as well as the mystery of the dark magnetic noxious mist, they were not too surprised. Under everyone's attentive looks, Yi Zhangfeng closed his eyes, and several sparkling drops of water appeared on his white face that was even more beautiful than a girl's. His hand, which was holding Shiryan's arm, was also slightly trembling as if he was consuming a big amount of power. Lin Yiqi was also surprised and a little bit puzzled when seeing Yi Zhangfeng being this exhausted. She clearly knew Yi Zhangfeng's ability more than anyone else. She thought that Yi Zhangfeng shouldn't have wasted too much strength with Shiryan's strange, possessed by the devil state. Instead, he only needed to sense a little to roughly know the current situation. However, she was a little bit shocked when seeing Yi Zhangfeng's reaction. She also looked at Shiryan out of curiosity. More sweat had appeared on Yi Zhangfeng's face as he became more somber. He was still closing his eyes without saying anything. No one knew whether he had figured something out or not. In the room, everyone was silent, looking at Yi Zhangfeng and Shiryan's abnormal state. Yi Tianmo's face changed all of a sudden. He lifted his face looking up and said with a cold face, "That guy is here again." Yameng's and Kaba's eyes became chillingly cold. They quickly sat down, releasing their souls to form a soul defensive formation which prevented that guy from penetrating. You guys shouldn't use the soul consciousness nor get out of the circle. Yi Tianmo's face was severely serious. His 5 fingers shot out many peculiar beams of light, creating a dome of light on the ground covering everyone inside of it. After finishing the arrangement, Yi Tianmo also sat down, closed his eyes, preparing to fight against the enemy. Chapter 321, The Mutant Martial Spirit. Chapter 321, The Mutant Martial Spirit. Editor. In the room, the three people of Tian Mo's group were sitting in three different directions surrounding Shiyan. Yi Zhongfeng was in the middle, and the other people were beside him, remaining alerted with somber faces. Chao Zhilan and Xia Xinyan stopped opposing each other. Instead, they both raised their heads up looking toward the sky and were carefully watching around. Only Lin Yiqi was leisurely. She took out a purple headscarf on which the image of clouds was embroidered. The clouds seemed to have several kinds of plants embroidered inside it as well. Putting the headscarf on, Lin Yiqi was even more comfortable, deliberately looking east to west. As soon as she put on the headscarf, the clouds on it started moving slowly, and the plants inside the clouds began to grow miraculously and quickly spread out the entire headscarf in a blink. Those plants rapidly emitted a strange flow of spiritual power that produced many peculiar circles of light wrapping around Lin Yiqi's head and eventually covering her entire body. Those circles of light swayed and wiggled before flying up to the sky. They then stopped at the place where the sole defensive formation of the three people of Tian Mo's group had condensed earlier. Sacred Level Secret Treasure. Chao Zhilan's beautiful face was full of astonishment while she was glancing at the purple headscarf on Lin Yiqi's head. She said with a gentle voice, "It is also the Sacred Level Secret Treasure of the sole defensive type. It is really surprising indeed." Xia Xinyan's and Xia Shenchuan's eyes were glowing while they quietly nodded their heads. No wonder why this girl didn't seem to worry at all. It turned out that she had the Sacred Level Secret Treasure of the sole defensive type. She obviously didn't need to be worried at all when holding that kind of treasure in her hand. There were a few of the Sacred Level Secret Treasures in the Endless Sea, and all of them were in the hands of the most powerful forces of the Endless Sea. The Sacred Level Secret Treasures was always the most precious value of each sect. It could sometimes be even more valuable than the God Realm warriors themselves. All of the Sacred Level Secret Treasures were in the God Realm warriors' hands, and only the God Realm warriors were able to make the most use of those treasures' powers, as well as protecting and keeping them safe. The Sacred Level Secret Treasure could be transmitted throughout many generations. It was seemingly unable to be destroyed, and thus, its value could be sometimes higher than that of the God Realm warriors. Currently, although Lin Yiqi was still ranked at the peak Earth realm, she already possessed a Sacred Level Secret Treasure. Xia Shenchuan and Chao Zhilan were terrified when they kept thinking about this. They couldn't imagine how powerful her old master's ability could be. Xia Xinyan was certain that the person who offered a Sacred Level Secret Treasure to another one was definitely an extremely powerful one. Creak, creak, creak. Some peculiar sounds came up from the roof of the house. Everyone raised their heads up and realized that the roof was being oppressed by layer upon layer of ripples and would explode soon. The dazzling light suddenly flared up while different kinds of soul powers intertwined in the air, which brought other people a feeling that those souls were about to break. It was terrifying. Even Xia Xinyan and Chao Zhilan, the future masters of the Endless Sea, didn't seem to be able to endure it. Under the waves of energy, the buzzing noise resounded in their heads that seemed like it was going to explode very soon. That was still taking place given the situation where the three people of Tian Mo's group had already set up the sole defensive formation. If the sole defensive formation hadn't been created by the unity of the three people of Tian Mo's group above their heads, the people under that formation should have been crushed by that tremendous soul power until their souls scattered and perished. Until now, only Lin Yiqi was unharmed. With the effects of the purple headscarf, she wasn't affected at all. She kept shifting her eyes from here to there, even showed a little of the boringness as if she didn't know what was happening above their heads. The faces of the three people of Tian Mo's group were terrifyingly somber. Their minds had never been as concentrated as this moment. With their soul cultivation realm, they certainly would not lose to this intruder in a one-on-one battle. Tian Mo could even be a little bit stronger. However, they had to be more careful this time as there were many people in the room. The purpose of the three of them was not only to resist the enemy's soul attacks, but also to assure the other people's safety, which was their number one priority. That was why they were encumbered and had to spare a part of their soul powers to arrange many layers of the soul defense to protect Shiryen and the others from being harmed. Because they had used the majority of their powers in defense, they obviously couldn't concentrate all of their soul powers to launch any other kinds of powerful attacks. Boom! The roof of the house exploded. In the middle of 5 colored soul dots of light, many peculiar light circles from Lin Yiqi's headscarf suddenly condensed into an entity and then turned into thin curtains of light that restrained the soul powers striking from above. Leave the defense to me. You guys focus on dealing with that fellow. Lin Yiqi was a little impatient. She couldn't help but shout, "No worries. He won't be able to break my sacred level secret treasure. You can comfortably combine all of your powers to fight." The eyebrows of the 3 of them slightly arched, which indicated that they were about to launch the full power attacks. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Numerous rays appeared. Tens of thousands of light soul beams twisted together and crushed the opponent's soul in just a few seconds. Scattering soul dots of light which resulted from their fight were blocked by the curtains of light that had been emitted from Lin Yiqi's headscarf. Many flows of soul aura quickly disappeared. Lin Yiqi raised her head up looking towards the sky for a while before retrieving her headscarf and mumbling, "That stealthy bastard is annoying. He deserves bad luck." Phew. Tianmo slightly exhaled, slowly opened his eyes, and said with a somber look, "His soul got injured this time. It will not recover in a short time. He probably won't dare to come here again." Yameng and Kaba opened their eyes wide with elated faces and kept on grinning. The cultivation base of those 3 people was not inferior to that of the opponent. If it weren't because they had been distracted in protecting the other people, that fellow wouldn't have dared to break in. Even if the fellow had calculated it by hook, he would have never expected Lin Yiqi to be present here, and more importantly that she had the peculiar sacred level secret treasure. Thanks to this secret treasure, Lin Yiqi had freed the 3 people of Tianmo's group from the encumbrance, helping them in being able to launch their full power attacks and seriously harm the opponent. Boom. While everyone was excited, the purple light on Shiryan's right arm noisily exploded all of a sudden. The violently intense lights created many flows of power like ocean waves that massively spread out with the tremendous aura that could even wash mountains away. Yi Zhongfeng's skinny body was struck away, breaking through 3 layers of walls before falling in the middle of the garden. At the same time, Shiryan's sea of consciousness was suddenly shaken, his host's soul slightly trembled. He also opened his eyes. Shiryan's eyes were somehow in a daze, looking at the people surrounding him. He asked with astonishment, "What are you guys doing?" Korf korf. In the middle of the garden, Yi Zhongfeng constantly dry coughed before standing up. His face was pale with a trickle of blood gushing out from the corner of his mouth. He took the pellet while walking over and miserably speaking, "Shiryen, you've made me injured. You have to be responsible for this." Lin Yiqi astonishingly asked while her face changed dramatically, "Little Bai, are you injured?" Yi Zhongfeng awkwardly nodded. "Ha ha ha, interesting." Lin Yiqi wasn't worried. Instead, she clapped her hands and gloatingly said, "That's fantastic. It's not easy to see you get injured. It is interesting when you are injured, although you have many secret treasures on your body. Little rascal, you are dangerous indeed. You could even get Little Bai injured. Good, very good. Your ability seems to have proved that you are qualified enough to fight against a Nirvana Realm warrior. As far as I have known, the first sky of the Nirvana Realm warrior even has to take risks to be able to harm Little Bai." After hearing what she had just said, other people couldn't help but be surprised, shockingly looking at Shiryen and then Yi Zhongfeng. According to Lin Yiqi, Yi Zhongfeng's ability was even more terrifying than that of a Nirvana Realm warrior. With the Heaven Flame, together with many secret treasures and his shocking ability, this guy was indeed a monster. What happened? Shiryen knitted his eyebrows. "It is like this." Tianmo seriously told him about what had happened before asking, "What happened to you last night?" "According to your assumption, I have accidentally encountered the possessed by the devil while cultivating." Shiryen shuddered but remained calm while speaking. While talking, he quietly transmitted the spirit power to his right arm and realized that each muscle fiber in his right arm was flooded with some kind of strange powers. These powers stayed hidden in each of his muscle fibers, and it was not easy to detect them unless he used his spirit power. It was unknown why his right arm also became so abnormally heavy that he could hardly move it. Meanwhile, his left arm was still fine. As soon as he effortlessly swung it up, the mirage appeared right away. After quietly sensing for a while, he frighteningly realized that the weight difference between the left and the right hand was not only 100 times. His face turned pale with fear inside his heart when he bewilderedly and shockingly looked at his right arm. He remembered clearly that before he had been unconscious, 639 muscles on his body had been shaking nonstop. This kind of tremor had spread out all over his body, flooding into his sea of consciousness and his host's soul, and then constantly agitated his entire body. In this kind of state, the mystical power and his entire body's profound chi converged together and absorbed into his right hand, fusing with the muscles there to form some kind of peculiar transformation. Currently, when this transformation had ended, his right arm was now overwhelmed with the mighty refined power, which also caused the weight increase and the difficulty in the movements of this arm. After all, was this good or bad? It's not the possessed by the devil state. While Shi Yan was still thinking with his strange face, Yi Zhongfeng suddenly spoke up. Under other people's astonished eyes, he smiled and confirmed, "That is the mutant martial spirit." Everyone's faces changed. The martial spirit's mutation was extremely complicated. Its rate was microscopic, and ordinary people hardly noticed it. Even the people who had experienced it didn't know that they had already undergone the transforming process of the anomalous martial spirit. There had ever been many tales about the martial spirit's mutation, including its mystery or unpredictability. However, no one knew why or how the martial spirit mutated, nor were they able to control this kind of mutation. Normally, the martial spirit's mutation only occurred in a specific phenomenal circumstance. No one possibly knew of this mutation before it actually happened and couldn't stop it while it was happening. After the mutation, the martial spirit transformed irregularly and marvelously. That was the special feature of the mutant martial spirits. The martial spirit's mutation was not something fun to the warriors. The martial spirit's mutation wasn't a good thing to many of them. Let's take the Flora martial spirit as an example. Before the mutation, while fighting with other people, one would immediately have an advantage as long as they were in a luxuriant and verdant forest. They could even rely only on the martial spirit to be able to control trees and plants to wrap and squeeze their enemies to death without the use of their forces. However, after the martial spirit mutated, the ability to control plants might disappear, and the fighting strength might also dramatically decrease, except for the remaining ability to foster and nourish trees and plants. A lot of martial spirits were very dangerous before the mutation, but were clearly weakened after the mutation. However, nothing was absolute. There were also some cases where the martial spirits became stronger after the mutation, which enhanced its intimidation. This probability always existed, just much lower than the chances that the martial spirits got weakened. Therefore, everyone's faces remarkably changed when they heard that Shi Yan's martial spirit had just mutated, as they all assumed that was the bad mutation. Especially when this kind of martial spirit's mutation had caused Shi Yan's profound chi to have been completely consumed. That made other people more anxious. Although I don't know how this kind of martial spirit's anomaly will develop, I am sure that the mutation has occurred. It's just I still don't know whether it will continue happening or not. Yi Zhongfeng looked at Shi Yan with a complicated face and said, "As this mutation prevents you from gathering the profound chi, it might not give you many chances to be able to break through, and thus, the mutation will probably happen in the bad direction." After hearing what he had said, the three people of Yi Tianmo's group and Xia Xinyan were even more worried. Everyone knew what it meant when being unable to gather the profound chi. A warrior who couldn't gather the profound chi was not a warrior anymore. Having no profound chi meant having no source of strength. A warrior without profound chi was not different from an ordinary person. That was the fatal strike for a warrior. Xia Shenchuan's and other people's faces dramatically changed with fear while they confusingly looked at Shi Yan. Would a top future master of the Endless Sea become an ordinary person just because of the martial spirit's mutation? Everyone had the same thought. Xia Xinyan was broken-hearted and kept on sighing. Her heart was full of sorrowful innermost feelings, but she didn't know what to say. Shi Yan's face became heavy, and his eyebrows slammed together. He sat down cross-legged without saying a word. After taking a deep breath, Shi Yan held his breath, concentrating his mind to make another attempt in condensing the profound qi. As long as he could condense the profound qi, it meant that the tragic case was not happening. As everyone saw him sitting down, they were all quiet and anxiously waited for the result. Chapter 322, Understanding People's Heart. Chapter 322, Understanding People's Heart. Editor. Shi Yan was silent while his face looked a little odd. He was still quietly condensing the sky and earth aura without saying a word. The three people of Yi Tianma's group, Yi Zhongfeng and others had scattered further away from him, surrounding and watching him in silence. A beam of regret and disappointment flickered in the eyes of the four people Yi Zhongfeng, Chao Jilan, Lin Yiqi, and Xia Shunchuan as if they were watching Shi Yan falling into a deep abyss from the god position in the sky. Because of this mutation, he would probably lose his will and hardly break through the next realm. Xia Xinyan's face looked calm, but her heart was actually agitated. She didn't dare to imagine that if Shi Yan couldn't condense the sky and earth aura, how the situation would be. When he lost his body strength completely and became an ordinary person, she wasn't sure if he could stand it, given his haughtiness. Yi Tianmo, Kaba, and Yimeng were even more anxious. They had served Shi Yan as their master, betting the future of the demonic Sound clan on him. If Shi Yan became an ordinary person, they would be lashed for this. Under the other people's scrutinizing eyes, Shi Yan closed his eyes, attentively condensing the sky and earth aura. The black head lotus tattoo on his chest started exerting its effect, gathering the sky and earth aura around him, creating a flow of the spiritual aura pouring into his chest. After condensing a little bit and being controlled by his spirit, this flow of aura flowed along the vessels toward the beam of profound qi light on his belly. This beam of profound qi light was the fist-sized tornado-like type. When Shi Yan sent his spirit into it, he realized that its interior was empty, not a single profound qi nor the marvelous ancient profound qi tree remained. Only the nihility existed there. Previously, the first step of the cultivating process was to gather the sky and earth aura, which would be refined and condensed by the tornado on his belly to transform into the feeble profound qi that then poured into the center of the tornado and converged at the beam of profound qi light. However, this time was different. After the sky and earth aura had poured into that tornado, the whirling speed was enhanced rapidly. But after a while, the sky and earth aura which had just poured into the tornado disappeared again as if it had swirly diffused and gotten out through the pores on the belly instead of being condensed and transformed into the purified profound qi. Shi Yan was worried but not hopeless. He continued condensing and refining the profound qi. However, the result was still the same. After he had condensed the sky and earth aura and poured them into the tornado, during the spinning time, the tornado threw out all the aura that had just been poured in. As the profound qi was gone, the tornado also slowed down and eventually was motionless like a dead pond. His mood gradually sank into the bottom of the glass as his face became grimaced. When the three people of Yi Tianma's group saw his gloomy face, they were worried if he could endure this fatal shock or not. It seems this martial spirit's anomaly has stopped you from being able to gather the profound qi. If so, you have no profound qi to use. Yi Zhongfeng slightly released a sigh and regretfully said, without the profound qi, you cannot be considered a warrior. Such a pity. Chao Jilan's charming face slightly changed. Her beautiful eyes gazed at Shi Yan complicatedly for a moment while she was thinking about not to build up the relationship with Shi Yan anymore. Due to this mutation, her previous romantic interest in him had been restrained reasonably. Such a regret. Chao Jilan quietly thought as her picturesque eyebrows knitted tightly. Her mind was considering the relation with Shi Yan's group. She felt that giving her lifetime happiness in Shi Yan's hands right now was extremely unwise. Therefore, she decided to leave Shuryen, giving up her initial choice. Xia Shenchuan was frustrated. In fact, Chao Jilan's and his way of thinking were similar. He considered Shuryen the future master of the Yang family, who could surpass Yang Tian Emperor one day to become the most admirable warrior in the Endless Sea. He had felt that Shuryen could help the Xia family regain the top position. Regretfully, the entire plan had been thwarted by the mutation of Shuryen's martial spirit. It was no longer practical. However, his intention was different from Chao Jilan's. He didn't decide to stay away from Shuryen. Instead, he wanted to advise and comfort him in the hope of Shuryen could pull himself together and wouldn't easily collapse because of this upheaval. It's all right, Xia Xinyan was still smiling, looking at Shuryen, and then gently said, I believe that you will recover. At least, you will still have a chance to start all over again. Shuryen's face was toneless like a rock. However, after hearing Xia Xinyan's words, he felt moved and regained some hope. That's right. At most, he will start everything over again. As he first came here, his body was just ordinary and nothing special anyway. Thanks to the mystery martial spirit's effect, his body had gained a little of profound qi. After a long time of hardships and striving, together with the help of the mystery martial spirit, he had reached the peak Earth realm in just a short time. Presently, although he couldn't gather and condense the profound qi, he was still able to use the forces in his meridians. Moreover, his sea of consciousness had been formed. Many secrets still stayed hidden in his body. His rings still contained and controlled the ice-cold flame, the 10,000-year earth flame, and the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame. All those things could provide him with strength. As long as he used them well, he would not be worse than before. Moreover, nobody was sure that his current incident of impossibly gathering the profound qi could not be cured. He vaguely felt that this incident was just temporary, which might have something related to the mutation of the mystery martial spirit. Waited until the mutation was over, he would restore his normal state. I am okay. I will think about this carefully. I perhaps will have a solution for it. A bunch of thoughts zoomed over in his head, but Shuryen still forced a smile and remained his calm face, then said, I need time. Yeah, I believe you can recover. Xia Xinyan revealed a smile and said, I hope you are lucky enough. Yi Zhongfeng slightly shook his head, looking at Shuryen with strange, meaningful eyes. The transformation caused by the mystery martial spirit's mutation is usually hard to recover. I just want to warn you in advance so that you can be well prepared. Moreover, if you want to find a way to fix this, your right arm should be the key. Shuryen knitted his eyebrows but didn't say anything. Sure you are not in a good mood today. Yi Zhongfeng beamed a faint smile. I don't bother you anymore then. We will take a walk and buy some stuff in the auction of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland on the way. After a short pause, Yi Zhongfeng continued, I want to stay here tonight. Is it possible? Up to you, said Shuryen. Anyway, there are many chambers here. Another 2 more people if you would not make it cramped. You can come if you want. That's good. Yi Zhongfeng nodded, signaling Lin Yiqi, and then both of them left together. Shuryen, can you remove the formation technique in my soul? Chao Jilan had contemplated for a long while before speaking up with a smile. I can rightfully hand out 5 islands of the Chao family as the ransom for my freedom. Is it okay? While she was talking, her storage ring suddenly flared up and a sheaf of papers emerged from her white hand. Chao Jilan's smile was still beautiful, but it seemed to lack something. After giving Shuryen those papers, she gently retracted her hand and said, Those 5 islands all have mineral mines and exceptional auras, which are not inferior to those of the Gu family. What do you think? From Chao Jilan's manners and tone, Shuryen obviously understood why she had that kind of deeds. He secretly smirked within his heart and emotionlessly said, Possible. Upon his words, Shuryen regarded Yi Tianmo with complicated eyes and said, Can I ask for your help? The 3 people of Yi Tianma's group remained their calm faces and gravely nodded to Shuryen. They didn't change their attitude toward Shuryen just because of his body's mutant transformation. Shuryen was a little bit assured after seeing their attitude. He then said with a sarcastic tone, Remove the formation technique for her, set her free. My current situation cannot afford to keep that dangerous slave. Chao Jilan's long eyelashes slightly shivered while she was looking at Shiryen with a complicated visage. After a while, she released a sigh and said, Shiryen, although there is no more chance between you and me, I still have to say that you are the only man who has ever moved me. Regretfully, we are not meant to be together. Sigh. The three people of Yi Tianma's group bowed, sending their souls into her brain altogether. Just after a short while, as soon as a noise resounded in Chao Jilan's brain, her soul has been freed from the control of the formation technique. I hope you don't lose your will. Take care of yourself. Chao Jilan looked at Shiryen, slightly released a sigh, and then glided away. Shiryen sneered with a mocking face, but didn't say anything further. That woman is dangerous indeed, very decisive and straightforward. As soon as she has realized that things are going out of her plan, she immediately cuts off the bond, doesn't let herself get hurt. Xia Shenchuan watched Chao Jilan's figure, contemplated for a while before speaking. She is very decisive, even though she is still young. We cannot disdain this girl in the future. Although I don't like her, I have to admit that she is not easy to deal with. It is normal. Shiryen revealed a smile. As a lady from a big family, she has been fed with many thoughts of fights for power, and thus, she has never felt safe. Her wicked intentions are very big, so she needs to find a leverage force to carry on her dreams. When she has realized that I could not bring her what she wants, she decisively leaves me at once. I really admire her at this point. Why don't you have any discontent? Xia Xinyan was somehow astonished. It is not the first time I have encountered this, I have understood. Shiryen revealed a faint smile and said, Not only do I understand the situation, but I also know her very well. Everyone has different purposes. There is nothing wrong with choosing a better man for a better future. As long as she doesn't fish in the troubled water, taking advantage of my current situation to do something bad, I have nothing to be discontented. You have actually thought it through, Xia Sengtuan exclaimed. Seeing you optimistic instead of disappointed and dispirited, I am now less worried. I just temporarily cannot gather and condense the profound qi. It doesn't mean that I'm going to die. So, it's useless to be frustrated. Shiryen dragged a smile out of the corner of his mouth. Even when I don't have the profound qi, it is not sure that Nirvana Realm warriors can defeat me. Xia Shengchuan was astonished. Chapter 323, Stay With You. Chapter 323, Stay With You. Editor. Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yiqi left the manor, heading to the sacred Light Mountain. They excitedly laughed and talked together on the way, didn't let Shiryen's mutant martial spirit affect their moods. Little Bai, tell me if Shiryen will be discouraged because of the mutation of his martial spirit? Lin Yiqi asked with a regretful tone while watching the sunrise and then shifting her eyes to the sacred Light Mountain, which was immersed in the morning light. That guy's ability is not bad. It is such a pity if he cannot become a warrior just because of that mutant martial spirit. Yi Zhongfeng laughed out loud, dispiritedly waving the feather fan, and said sluggishly, Why do you need to care about him? It is not easy to deal with that guy even when he doesn't use his profound qi. What can he do without the profound qi? Lin Yiqi was a little puzzled. Profound qi is the cultivating foundation of all warriors. No profound qi means no forces. Later on, either in fighting or doing something else, without profound qi, it is not good at all. He will not be like that. Yi Zhongfeng remained his normal face, dragging a strange smile out of the corner of his mouth. Although the profound qi in his body had vanished completely, I was still struck away when I was exploring his body. Don't you feel it was bizarre? After hearing what Yi Zhongfeng had said, Lin Yiqi was astonished and suddenly recalled what had happened earlier. When Shiryen had fallen into the strange state, Yi Zhongfeng had explored Shiryen's body, but then had been struck away by the purple light on Shiryen's right arm, breaking through 3 rooms before falling into the garden. If Shiryen had lost his profound qi, what had he relied on to be able to knock Yi Zhongfeng away? The more Lin Yiqi thought, the more suspicious she felt. As a result, she couldn't help but ask, does he have some transformation? He did have a little change. Yi Zhongfeng nodded with a smile and said, he will gradually get familiar with the new transformation of his body. If he understands his body well, he will still be a dangerous man, even without the profound qi. Lin Yiqi frighteningly sputtered, almost screamed out loud. Yi Zhongfeng beamed a faint smile and didn't explain anything further. He quickly walked toward the sacred Light Mountain. In the forest at the northwest of the Sun Island, pine trees formed a peculiar formation, which prevented souls from penetrating. Many flags hung up on the pine trees. Those flags had drawings of many toxic insects, which were very lively as if they were moving on the flags for real, giving people a devilish feeling. There was only one simple wooden house situated in the pine forest surrounded by rubble. Those pieces of stone seemed to be arranged accordingly to some kind of formation, forming a mysterious formation altogether. Chilling layers of smoke rolled up from that wooden house. The ambiguous mist of smoke brought along the strange aura which paralyzed people's nerves and dazed people's mind. Anyone who inhaled this aura would instantly be affected, unable to stand firmly. Crack, crack. A strange noise resounded from that wooden house. Inside the house, a person with unknown appearance was enclosed in a gloomy light, sitting on a wooden bed and slightly trembling. The bed also lurched accordingly, creating strange squeaks nonstop. It then collapsed eventually. When the wooden bed collapsed, that person also fell onto the pile of wood chips. The muddy gray light was still wrapping the body as before, which made people hardly see that person's real appearance. Rustling, rustling. As soon as the crisp sound of dried leaves arose from outside the house, the person who had just fallen instantly pulled himself together. The light gradually faded away, and thus, that person's appearance became clearer. That was a middle-aged man in a gray tunic with unfriendly appearance, gray-white beard and hair, an aquiline nose, long and thin eyebrows, thin lips, strict eyes, and dark skin. He gave people a cagey feeling. "Uncle," Dong Feng's voice came up. He slightly called out and stood motionlessly outside the house, didn't dare to step inside. The person inside the house with cold and miasmal eyes gradually stood up, stepped out of the door, attentively looking ahead for a while before slightly snorted and called Dong Fenghe, "Come in." Dong Fenghe walked inside then said, "I went over there yesterday. That little rascal didn't want to meet me. Even the 3 unidentified God Realm warriors didn't want it either. On the way, I met other people from other forces who also paid them a visit, and they were not an exception as all were rejected. I didn't see anyone who was allowed to step in their accommodation." Seeing the broken bed, Dong Fenghe was very frightened, but didn't show it on his face. He calmly told that person what had happened. "I have just come back from there by using the soul." His voice and eyes became sharp and cold. "Those 3 God Realm warriors have exceptional soul accomplishment. I also saw that the little rascal Shuryen seems to have cultivated until falling into the possessed by the devil state. I was about to penetrate his consciousness to check, but got hindered by the unity of those 3 people, which even harmed my soul. If it weren't that I had put forth all of my spiritual power into my soul, I perhaps wouldn't have gotten out of there alive." Dong Fenghe's face suddenly changed. He couldn't help but scream in fear. How could it be? That person threw him a cold glance while his entire body emitted a bone-chilling aura. He said, "In this world, the number of people who have the profound understanding of the soul is countless. Those 3 people have impressed me very much in this terms. In the Endless Sea, except for young Yi Tian who has unreachable soul level, those 3 people have shocked me as well. I don't know where they are from and why they are willing to support the Yang family. Uncle, are they the remaining people of Yang Tian Emperor?" Dong Fenghe hesitated a little bit before speaking. Although Yang Tian Emperor has been confined in the demon area, everyone knows that the Yang family's ability is unfathomable. Those 3 people might have some relation to Yang Tian Emperor. Yang Tian Emperor, the man gritted his teeth while his face was full of envy, and his eyes were as sharp as an ice saber. It looked like Yang Tian Emperor was his archenemy. 3 years ago, Dongfeng family's people arrived at the Kiara Sea and realized that there was not a sound from high-class warriors or pagans in the immortal island of the Yang family. All of them had disappeared. Although the immortal island and the Kiara Sea were occupied, the Yang family's forces did not suffer a great loss. If Yang Tian Emperor could escape from the capture, The Yang family could have still been as strong as before. Dongfeng He said with a low voice. They are absolutely not the remaining people of Yang Tian Emperor. The man revealed a cold smile, snorted then said, with his combative ambitions, if Yang Tian Emperor has 3 God Realm warriors in his hands, the Hangluo Sea and the Blackwater Sea should soon have become his territory, losing their freedom for a long time already. Dongfeng He was surprised, carefully thought over about it and then nodded. The meeting will start tomorrow. I will not expose myself anymore so that those 3 people couldn't detect me. The man was hesitant before instructing Dongfeng He, you quickly investigate the identity of those 3 people, discover their relationship with the Yang family. Each of the forces here has their own plans and conspiracies. They don't have consensus. So, we should not let our guard down to avoid any mistakes. Martial Holy Palace doesn't seem to have any actions. Dongfeng He nodded and replied, Yang Etian should have his own plan. As he has invited us to the Sun Island, he should definitely know the situation of the Sun Island like the back of his hand. Zhongli Dun perhaps will show up at the meeting tomorrow. The man said while knitting his eyebrows. Zhongli Dun, Dongfeng He mumbled suspiciously, is this guy who ranks the first on the power rankings valued that much? Yang Etian also believes in him? He is still young after all. Is he capable enough so that Yang Etian would let him have full control over this matter? That fellow is more dangerous than you think. The man coldly harumphed and continued, Yang Etian has directly taught him martial arts for 10 years. He will definitely be one of the dominators of the Endless Sea. If Yang Etian let him handle this matter, it means Yang Etian believes in his ability. Dongfeng He was astonished. It is said that ordinary Sky Realm warriors are not his opponents. The man said coldly. Dongfeng He's face finally changed in fear. Shiyan took the papers out of the blood vein ring and handed to Tian Mo while smiling, you temporarily take care of this stuff. The first sunbeam pierced through the window and the cracks on the stone wall caused by the soul fight at the previous night, lighting up the entire room. As the 3 people of Tian Mo's group didn't like the sunlight, they found the dark corners to stay while wearing gloomy faces. Shiyan had asked Xia Shengchuan and Xia Xinyan to leave, so there were only Shiyan and the 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan in the room. Master, what do you mean by saying it? A beam of light glimmered in Tian Mo's eyes while his face was a little unhappy. He didn't lift his hands to receive the papers. After chuckling to himself, Shiyan kept pushing the papers toward Tian Mo and said, these papers are the ownership proof of some big islands in the seas. However, the main forces that have handed them to me might not comply with the covenants. Once the demon dwellers' peril is solved, it is not sure that they will rest on their laurels. However, when the demon dwellers' threat is still there, they will temporarily be patient, didn't dare to be rebellious. Tian Mo kept silent without uttering a word. I know your tribe has just arrived at the Endless Sea and you are still not familiar with the Grace mainland. I also know that the demonic sound clan needs precious and rare materials for your cultivation, especially the spiritual pellets and the icy instones are essentially important to your cultivation base. Shiyan talked to them naturally. You can seize the time to send your men to these islands and harvest the necessary things, preparing for the future. The 3 people of Tian Mo's group still didn't open their mouths while their faces were getting more complicated. I originally wanted to take advantage of the major chaos in the Endless Sea to help you guys obtain enough resources before your return. Currently, the number of the islands in my hands is not many, but it's still better than nothing. You should quickly gather more valuable things on these islands and then prepare to leave this area. Before your soul scatters and perishes, you are still our master. After keeping silent for a long while, Tian Mo then received those papers and stressed each word, even if we have to leave, we will leave with you. If you don't go, we will also stay with you. Yameng and Ka Ba immediately nodded. Chapter 324, The Strong Right Arm. Chapter 324, The Strong Right Arm. Great lady. 3 Sky Realm warriors were standing in a chamber, respectfully conducting ceremony toward Chao Jilan. This chamber situated right at the foot of the sacred light mountain in a business quarter. This area was very bustling and animated with boisterous voices and many warriors from different places of the endless sea gathering here to find treasures they had desired. There was a small road at a hidden corner of the business quarter leading to a hatch where a path connected with this secret chamber under the ground. Those 3 Sky Realm warriors looked like 3 brothers, wearing the same coarse garments. Standing solemnly in the chamber, they looked like 3 imposing and intimidating mountains, emitting heavy auras. Ordinary warriors even found it hard to breathe when facing them. Those 3 people just had normal appearances, so if they mingled in the crowd, no one would ever notice them. Those 3 people were the protectors of the Chow family, who were seldom showed up in front of strangers and devoted in helping the Chow family do some dubious missions. You are all here. That's good. Chow Jilan was comfortably sitting on a chair. A halo flashed over her face, which could mesmerize other people. She knitted her eyebrows. Tell me about the latest situation of the family. The 3 warriors of the Chow family nodded, bent down, and started reporting on everything about the Chow family in recent years. Chow Jilan slightly closed her eyes while listening carefully. Waiting until those 3 people had finished, she then nodded. Everything is good. Nothing is abnormal. So, the plan seems to be unchanged. The 3 of them all nodded with the respectful manners. This attitude truly came from inside their hearts, not just because of Chow Jilan's status. The 3 of you come here to protect me or to attend the meeting on the Sun Island as well? Chow Jilan emotionlessly asked with moderate speed. The main purpose is to accompany you back home. One of those 3 people bent down close to the ground, respectfully said, the Hangluo Sea is not safe anymore. Our master's intention is that we should temporarily not involve in the Hangluo Sea's matters. As we come here to see you, we also want to check how many forces are gathering here for the meeting on the same occasion. We actually don't want to join it. Chow Jilan gently nodded, seemed to know about this in advance. We have heard that great lady has been confined. Do you need us to go there? Another man stepped forward to ask for her instructions while a cold beam of light glinted in his eyes. No need, Chow Jilan coldly said. Great lady, we have heard that you and the little rascal Shuryen have seemingly had conflicts in the hot spring. Mangu has also had to show himself out and got defeated, suffering serious injuries. That man considered a little more carefully, then bent down even lower. Great lady, you have never laid your eyes on anyone. Do you really want to involve in the relationship with that guy? Chow Jilan was silent, whining inside her heart. She contemplated for a while before standing up, shaking her head, and speaking up indifferently. In fact, I initially had that intention. However, I don't know what to think now. The mutation has happened to his martial spirits. Perhaps he will not be able to gather the profound chi for the rest of his life. His cultivation base has probably reached its limit. The other 3 people were astonished, then silently nodded, assuming that what Chow Jilan had done was obviously right. Sigh, Chow Jilan was a little melancholy. If it weren't because he could not gather his profound chi anymore, perhaps I would sincerely follow him. This man is indeed outstanding. If he could have maintained his strength as before, he would have had a big advancement and surpassed Zhong Lidan, becoming the most brilliant person in the Endless Sea. A beam of light suddenly glinted in the eyes of the 3 protectors of the Chow family while they showed their disbelieving manners. I know how dangerous Zhong Lidan is. He has the Nirvana Realm cultivation base, the well-known abstruse soul, as well as many martial techniques. Thus, he is always complimented as once-in-a-lifetime genius. Chow Jilan slightly harumphed and continued, however, Shuryen is not much inferior to him. Even my spirit god martial spirit couldn't check how many secrets he has. This man brings me a mysterious feeling. If it weren't for the mutant martial spirit, I would have longed for the day that he and Zhong Lidan fight against each other. Such a pity then. The 3 protectors of the Chow family nodded. It's a pity indeed. Chow Jilan blushed with embarrassment when suddenly thinking about how she had given him her first kiss on her own initiative. She thus kept silent without saying anything further. As Shuryen has no value anymore, we perhaps should skip him and contact directly with the guys following him. The other person said. Very difficult. Chao Jilan thought for a while before speaking. Considering the situation now, I feel that convincing those 3 pagans is not a simple matter. On the Snow Dragon Island, there are another terrifying God Realm pagan warriors as well. The 3 protectors of the Chao family looked odd, screaming at the same time, 5 God Realm warriors. Chao Jilan nodded with a strange smile. Yes, 5 God Realm warriors. This force is terrifyingly powerful. If it isn't so, I wouldn't have boldly stayed there for such a long time like that. Sigh, regretfully, he can't gather the profound chi. Maybe those pagans are also about to leave him. Do we need to send our men straight to the Snow Dragon Island to see the other 2 people? Yeah, we can try. I am not sure if we will succeed or not, but at least we should show them the Chao family's good intentions. I think if Shiryen just dies in silence, it will be easier for us to contact with those pagans. Chao Jilan's eyes glimmered with a cold beam of light, stonily looking at the protector who had just spoken up. You better forget what you have just said. Not to mention the relation between Shiryen and that pagan group. Yang Tian Emperor has not been killed just yet, so if Shiryen is dead in your hands, you think how many people can you hide it from? You think you are a God Realm warrior. That protector's face dramatically changed while he obediently nodded nonstop, didn't dare to say another word. Don't think about killing Shiryen. Don't bring troubles to the Chao family anymore. Understand? Chao Shirlan snorted coldly. The 3 protectors quickly nodded, clearly showing that they were very scared of her. In another secret stone chamber, Shiryen was sitting cross-legged on the ground with a gloomy face, knitting his eyebrows while looking at his right arm and thinking dolefully. He placed his right arm on a rock surface, looking at his rough arm, didn't recognize anything different from before. Afterward, when he closed his eyes, strange purple rays suddenly appeared from his eyes. After focusing his mind, he realized that those purple rays also stayed hidden in his muscles. He was thinking about the current situation where his right arm had become as rigid as iron and stone and was not different from being sculptured by a knife. This gave people an impetuous feeling. Mutant martial spirit, Shiryen frowned and mumbled to himself, it should be because of that petrification martial spirit. But how come this kind of mutation has happened? Why has it consumed all of my profound chi? He sat in the stone chamber and watched his body's transformation for half a day with many unanswered questions. He somehow could be certain that the transformation of his body happened due to the petrification martial spirit. He knew the evolvement process of the petrification martial spirit included 4 phases, and every phase had a different shade from each other. At the first phase, the skin had the white-gray hue, and then it would turn into the light brown at the second phase and green-yellow at the third phase. At the last phase, the skin would be purple. Besides the fact that different phases had different shades, the strength in each phase was also various. According to what he had known, only when the cultivation base entered the sky realm could the petrification martial spirit reach the 4th phase where the skin would turn to be purple. Of course, that process happened to the ordinary warriors only. Since Shiryan's body had the support of the mystery martial spirit's power, his martial spirit could directly enter the 4th phase without requiring his cultivation base to reach the demanded realm. Presently, the petrification martial spirit was still in the 3rd phase. If he triggered his mind, urging the petrification martial spirit, most of the skin on his body would turn into green-yellow. However, the color of his right hand remained unchanged, which was its normal skin color. However, with a closer look, people could see a flow of purple light vaguely emerged from his right arm. From that phenomenon, he guessed the petrification martial spirit was about to enter the 4th phase. Right now, the Master Shirjian of the Shir family only had the Nirvana realm cultivation base, and thus, the petrification martial spirit was only in the 3rd phase. Until now, nobody in the Shir family had ever broken through the sky realm, so no one had cultivated the petrification martial spirit to the 4th phase. Nothing about this 4th phase had been mentioned or described in Shiryan's memory, making him uncertain whether the current transformation of his body was normal or not, given that the petrification martial spirit was about to enter the 4th phase. His entire body had fossilized, being covered by a layer of green-yellow light. It was now stony and unbreakable. Meanwhile, although his right arm remained its original color, it became extremely heavy. It was already hard for him to move his right arm, and thus, if he had to engage in a fight now, this arm would definitely be troublesome for him, even causing his unsteady move. The reason was due to the heaviness of this arm. The weight difference between the left arm and right arm was more than 100 times. One of them was as light as nothing while the other one was as heavy as a mountain. The imbalance disturbed him very much. Dang it! Shurien used his strength to lift his right arm as high as possible. Without the help of the profound chi, this move was extremely slow. Until he could lift it over his head, sweat had already beaded on his forehead, and his back had also soaked in sweat. It looked like as if he had to lift a big mountain. Shurien understood that the reason he had been able to raise this arm over his head was that his body had gone through the extremely arduous cultivation, and thus his body strength was much mightier than other ordinary warriors. Otherwise, it was unlikely to lift this arm up like this. Dang it! He got crazy and cursed. His right arm suddenly dropped. His fist was like a big club pounding heavily on the rock surface. The arm and the fist effortlessly dropped as quickly as lightning, bringing along the terrifying flow of purple light. Boom! The hard green rock now became a piece of tofu which had utterly been smashed. He didn't encounter any difficulties in doing so. His right arm was like an undefeatable drill that pierced through the green rock. At the same time, a peculiar, powerful force was transmitted, dragging the tremor of his body. This tremor was very familiar. Shurien's face changed after he had realized this vibration. He felt his right arm seemed to be about to explode. A crazy, terrifying power from his body was spreading to his arm, making him unable to stand it. Boom, boom. The explosive sounds suddenly reverberated from the ground under Shurien's feet, giving people a terrible feeling. Shurien was frightened while his dazed eyes gazed at his feet, seeing the ground rippling like sea waves. In the booming sounds, the green stone ground under his feet was heaving nonstop as if it was being destroyed by a major earthquake which had a magnitude of 7 or 8. The broken green stones turned into chalky putty that scattered everywhere. His right arm shot out many circles of purple light one by one, crushing all the green stones into ashes wherever it had passed through, devastating everything that blocked their way. Boom, boom, boom. Shurien's face changed dramatically when a deafening sound resounded. He wanted to withdraw his arm but realized that it was getting so heavy he failed to do so. Instead, his body was pulled down into that mess. Swoosh! His clothes were torn apart. Scraps of fabric didn't fall on the ground, but were attracted down by that arm. The noise of explosion still kept coming up while the chamber looked as if it was being devastated by the earthquake. The stone chamber was gradually falling into pieces, green stones scattered everywhere. After a while, Shurien was besieged in an area of 30 square meters by the broken rubble. He was wearing an eccentric face, looking at the big grave, and then his right arm while a strange beam of light flashed up in his eyes. Master. The 3 people of Yi Tianma's group appeared at his side like ghosts, looking at the grave, with complicated faces. This is... Xia Shengchuan and Xia Xinyan also arrived. Looking at the ruined chamber, they showed a suspicious look on their faces. You did it? Xia Shengchuan hesitated a little bit before glancing at Yi Tianmo. Yi Tianmo shook his head. So, who did this then? Xia Shengchuan raised his head, shifting his look to Yimeng and Kaba and asked again, You too? Yimeng and Kaba were bewildered, constantly shaking their heads. Thus, everyone turned their heads around, looking at Shurien with strange eyes, together with the astonished, unbelievable look on their faces. I don't know what has happened either. Under the scrutinizing eyes of other people, Shurien shook his head, strangely looking at his right arm and mumbling, The mutant martial spirit not only prevents me from gathering the profound chi, but also makes me become like this. Chapter 325, Regain the Trust. Chapter 325, Regain the Trust. Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi came back to the manor at dusk. Both of them were startled seeing the big crater. The crater was 7 or 8 meters deep with rubble heaping up together. Everything had clearly been smashed into ashes by some force. Yi Zhongfeng squinted, assuming and considering the possibility. It seems that a fight has just occurred in this place. According to the current scene, it is certainly the masterpiece which has been caused by a Nirvana Realm warrior with his secret treasure. After having a quick glance, Lin Yiqi was a little disappointed. If I have known about this, I would have stayed here instead of having gone to that boring auction of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. Nothing there could attract me. Yi Zhongfeng dragged a smile out of the corner of his mouth, shaking his head. I don't think a Nirvana Realm warrior has caused this crater. According to my guess, this crater should be created by that guy Shurian. Unexpectedly, things already became like this just after one day. What? Lin Yiqi kicked the gravel on the ground, frowned, and said with disbelieving tone, not sure. Can't he gather the profound chi? You have said that his right arm has strength, but given the situation where he cannot use his profound chi and just relies on his right arm's strength, how can he make such a terrible destruction like this? You have underestimated him, Yi Zhongfeng said with a serious face. He was much more dangerous than you think. This guy is bizarre. The aura on his body is also a little peculiar. Even though he temporarily cannot gather the profound chi, it is still not easy for ordinary people to deal with him. Lin Yiqi was still doubtful. Yi Zhongfeng walked to Shi Yan's chamber without saying anything further. There were only Shi Yan and the three people of Yi Tianma's group in the room, discussing something with each other in a low voice. After Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yiqi had entered, Shi Yan immediately stopped the discussion with the other three people, raised his head looking at Yi Zhongfeng, then spoke up. How was the auction? Don't mention it. Yi Zhongfeng released a disappointed sigh. At first, I have had some respect toward this Spirit Treasure Wonderland, thinking that they could have displayed some real precious treasures. However, nothing was valuable there. It is such a waste of my mind to have been worried and prepared money for this. It was boring. Lin Yiqi pouted her mesmerized red lips. Maybe because your demands are too high, everything then becomes ordinary in your eyes. Something which is valuable in others' eyes may have no value in your eyes. Yi Zhongfeng had the heaven flame, and Lin Yiqi possessed the sacred level treasure. As both of them came from the dark magnetic noxious mist, they were obviously richer than most of the young successors in the Endless Sea. Their masters should be even wealthier than them, and thus, the eyes of his disciples were apparently different from other people's, and their demands were extremely high. Therefore, they hadn't found the treasures that the Spirit Treasure Wonderland had displayed interesting and valuable. Yi Zhongfeng seemed to understand the reason. He slightly grinned, nodded, and said, "It should probably be that reason. This manor has many vacancies. You can freely choose one among them." I can't help you with this. Shi Yan contemplated for a while before speaking to Yi Zhongfeng. As to our cooperation, you should think about it more carefully. With my current situation, I am not much of help. Yi Zhongfeng was a little bit surprised, then comfortably laughed. Are you saying that your heaven flame is currently not the same as before because of your inability to gather the profound chi? Shi Yan nodded. It's all right. Yi Zhongfeng looked very easygoing without any hesitation. I don't think so, anyway. If an ordinary person cannot gather the profound chi, they might have a lot of difficulties in controlling the heaven flame. You're different, though. Even if you cannot gather the profound chi forever, I think you still can control the heaven flame easily. Lin Yaqi's eyes suddenly brightened up. The three people of Yi Tianma's group were a little puzzled. Shi Yan knitted his eyebrows but didn't say anything. Because the relationship between you and the heaven flame is not normal, Yi Zhongfeng continued with a stern face. The way I control my heaven flame is that I temporarily remove its consciousness and forcefully occupy it. When I control it, I always have to be cautious with the possibility of its counterattack. Once my force cannot tyrannize over it, it will regain its consciousness and incinerate me into ashes. The saying, fire is a good servant, but a bad master, can be applied in my case. Shi Yan quietly nodded as he knew the method of controlling the heaven flame of the corpse's god sect is the same with the one of Yi Zhongfeng. You're different, though. Yi Zhongfeng revealed a faint smile. Although I don't understand how you can live with the heaven flame peacefully, the coadjutant relation between you and the heaven flame is something that I have desired. You might not be able to exert the heaven flame's power at most, but you will never have to worry that it will backfire on you. Even though you have no more profound qi, you still can use the heaven flame. After a short pause, Yi Zhongfeng continued, the most important thing is the communication means between you and the heaven flame. The heaven flame can still maintain its consciousness and its ability to evolve naturally, which I have desired. If it is possible, I hope that the jail refined true flame and I can form the same relationship. Yi Zhongfeng was very straightforward, didn't hide anything nor hesitated. Shiyan was astonished for a while before gently nodding his head. That's right. The relationship between the heaven flame and me is exactly like what you have just said. The matter of your profound qi doesn't seem to affect you badly. That's good. Yi Zhongfeng hesitated a little bit before continuing. It's not sure that your martial spirit has a bad mutation. I believe that you will overcome the inability to gather the profound qi. This kind of matter always exists during the mutation, and it will automatically disappear when the mutation is over. Shiyan was moved. The people of Yi Tianma's group got excited. Why didn't you say it before? Shiyan grunted and unhappily asked. I forgot. Yi Zhongfeng burst into laughter and then shifted his eyes toward Lin Yiqi, winking at her. He walked straight out of the room without waiting for Shiyan to utter any more word. His voice echoed, all right, you should prepare for the meeting tomorrow. With your current situation, climbing the sacred light mountain is not easy. Shiyan was astonished. Master, you should rest, he said while a smiling sign appeared in Yi Tianma's eyes. We know that you will definitely recover. With your current state, you will enter a whole new world once your profound qi is restored. Yimeng and Kaba nodded together. Shiyan laughed out loud, I hope so. Previously, Shiyan and the three people of Yi Tianma's group had been discussing the matter of the Snow Dragon Island. Given the situation of losing all the profound qi, he was a little down. Hence, he had instructed Yi Tianma's group that they should not engender a feud with other people, and they should immediately leave after seizing the resources on the islands that were in their hands right now. However, the three people of Yi Tianma's group hadn't agreed with him. Instead, they had insisted on staying with him, which had been out of his expectation. He hadn't expected that the three leaders of the demonic Sound clan could have such respect for him. Shiyan's faith had been not too strong before. However, after having listened to Yi Zhongfeng's explanation, he had gradually been enlightened. At this time, he had already regained his belief and no longer had any intention of asking Yi Tianma's group to leave him. When the sun descended behind the mountain, Shiyan discussed a little bit more with the three people of Yi Tianma's group before asking them to go back to rest. He then sat cross-legged alone in the room. His mind gradually blended with his body, and his soul started spreading out, slowly entering his right arm and concentrating all his consciousness into this arm. Shiyan's muscle fibers seemed to be magnified. His consciousness was moving between those sturdy muscle fibers, realizing as if it was entering a sea of energy. That was a new energy, formed by the fusion of the profound qi and the mysterious energy. This kind of energy stayed inside his arm, replenishing it with vitality and vigorousness. Would the fourth phase of the petrification martial spirit transform the entire body? Shiyan raised up his hope. Inside a human body, there were total 639 muscles which were constituted by 60 millions of muscle fibers, among of which, the longest muscle fiber was 60 centimeters and the shortest one was about 1 millimeter only. The heaviest muscle fiber was 200 grams, and the lightest one was only a few grams. For ordinary people, the muscles occupied around 35 to 40%, and the length of the total blood veins was around 100,000 kilometers. A lot of memories outflowed from his mind. These memories belonged to the body constitution subject of the other world. In that other world, he was very fond of intense movements, and thus, his body was much stronger than that of an ordinary one. He had also carried on a profound study of human body's muscles and attended several courses related to this subject. These memories had been deep-rooted, but now massively flowed out all of a sudden. With only one hand that was going through the transformation, he had almost consumed all of his profound qi and the mysterious fused energy. So, if the entire body had to undergo the transformation, how terrifying that unknown power would be. Just one normal fist of his right hand had already made a 30-meter crater. So, If his entire body had the transformation, and that transformation was perfectly successful, what level would the power in his body possibly reach? Shuryan squinted. His eyes were full of vitality. Chapter 326, Heading to the Mountain Peak. Chapter 326, Heading to the Mountain Peak. In the morning of the next day, many warriors had already gathered at the foot of the sacred Light Mountain, looking up toward the peak of the mountain and quietly giving compliments. The first beam of sunlight shining behind the sacred Light Mountain was magnified after traveling across the mountain. Only one gleam of light was enough to dazzle people's eyes. That ray of light seemed to have been reflected many times by the sacred Light Mountain, and thus, that blinding sunlight had already covered the mountain peak in just a short time. Many warriors at the foot of the mountain raised their heads looking up, seeing the blazing yellow light have already engulfed the entire sacred Light Mountain. The sacred Light Mountain looked as if it was gold-plated under the sun, which was extremely dazzling. Until the sun had gradually raised up, countless light rays shined, turning the sacred Light Mountain into a golden mountain with shining yellow halo that gave people a feeling of admiration and respect. The sacred Light Mountain emitted an impetuous aura and wallowed in the sunlight like the majestic mountain of gods. There was an imposing castle looked as if it was floating amid white clouds on the peak of the mountain. The scene was like a dream fairyland, which got a lot of compliments, whispers, and comments from many warriors who couldn't help but ask for their predecessors' permission to visit the sacred Light Mountain's peak. At the foot of the mountain, Li Fu and other 10 disciples of Three Gods sect were cautiously watching over a small road in the yellow hue. The entire sacred Light Mountain was immersed in the sunlight, emitted the tremendous aura that terrified other people. Disciples of Three Gods sect were taking strict guard, preventing other people from getting inside. Li Fu was standing at the beginning section of the small road, waiting in silence. After a short while, 2 master leaders of the Endless Sea, Yu Qin and Gu Shao, quietly appeared, heading to Li Fu together. Those who were standing at the foot of the mountain were terrified. Many of them had never seen these 2 leaders of the 2 big forces, so they frighteningly cast furtive glances at them, but couldn't stand passionately staring at Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing with excited faces. Yi Qin and Gu Shao slowly walked over in front of Li Fu, then handed him 2 golden invitation cards. Li Fu respectfully bent down, receiving the 2 invitation cards and inviting them to go up to the mountain peak. Yu Qin and Gu Shao gently nodded, then moderately walked toward the mountain. They both knew that the rule here didn't allow them to fly, so they just gently stepped forward, but with breakneck speed. Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing wanted to enter, but Li Fu stopped them. I am sorry, but this is a special case. Only those who have golden invitation cards are permitted to enter, and plus, each invitation is only for 1 person. Li Fu embarrassedly smiled, stretching his arms to impede the 2 of them and shaking his head. This time, it is weird. That's right. It seems to be very strict this time. None of the irrelevant people are allowed to walk in. This meeting seems to be very important. Unqualified people are not authorized to get in. Yes! Everyone was boisterously discussing, curiously looking up toward the mountain peak with dazed faces. In the clamorous noise, Gu Linglong's and Chu Yanqing's faces didn't look good. However, facing Li Fu's tactful rejection, they couldn't do anything but stopped at the foot of the mountain, looking ahead. The surrounding crowd quickly parted to give way while the noise seemed to cool down. The crowd felt comfortable and elated while being immersed in the warm sunlight. Suddenly, a flow of cold air came in, zooming over everyone's backs. A bizarre person in a black tunic and a grim mask was quietly approaching from afar. Inhai and the other disciples of Corpse's God sect were bending and walking behind him with gloomy faces and emotionless eyes like the dead. A flow of miasmal aura that could intimidate people was covering the entire area. Leading ahead was the hierarchy of Corpse's God sect, whose eyes were as peculiar as the dancing finfires. All of the warriors there unconsciously bowed their heads, didn't dare to look straight into his eyes whenever his eyes scanned over them. Some of them even couldn't stand, but take a few steps backward in panic. Corpse's God sect was the most devilish and mysterious sect in the Endless Sea. They made friends with corpses all day long and thus obviously had the icy miasmal aura that scared other people out of their wits. Wherever the corpses' god sex members appeared, they had never encountered any obstacles on their way as people automatically gave way to them. Even Li Fu's face changed a little bit, didn't look well. Qiming quietly walked forward with his finfire eyes, then took out the golden invitation card and threw it to Li Fu. Li Fu caught the invitation card and conducted the inviting gesture. However, Qiming didn't hurriedly get in. Instead, he stopped, standing motionlessly right on the spot. Everyone was stunned, looking at him with the doubtful look without knowing whom he was waiting for. Not long after that, Shurgen, together with the 3 people of Yi Tianma's group, appeared from afar, walking toward the foot of the mountain. As soon as Shuryen had arrived, plenty of people slightly screamed in admiration as they had witnessed the fight between Shuryen and Man Gu and understood how mighty Shuryen was. They immediately turned to the ones who hadn't seen that fight and told them the story. The hearts of many beautiful girls had been stirred after having seen Shuryen's sturdy body as well as his cold and firm momentum. Their eyes rippled while their souls kept vibrating nonstop, creating some kind of miraculous emotions. Gu Linglong and Qu Yanqing were standing on the way in. They knitted their eyebrows as soon as they saw Shuryen approaching, but they then instantly felt dispirited when seeing the surrounding people's admiring eyes. Gu Linglong's eyes were flooded with resentment as she gritted her teeth, bit her lips, and couldn't help but snort. Qu Yanqing lamented in her heart with complicated eyes, which now tightly fixed on Shuryen, glinting with strange beams of light. Nobody knew what she was thinking. Shuryen walked over in front of Li Fu, threw an astonished glance at Qiming of Corpse's god sect, and then nodded toward him with a smile. "Let's go together." Qiming gently invited with a voice that was indescribably miasmal, like a poisonous snake sticking out its tongue, very unpleasant to others' ears. "Ah!" A lot of people couldn't help but scream, bewilderedly looking at Shuryen then Qiming. They would never understand why the hierarchy of Corpse's god sect had been waiting for a brat like Shuryen. In their mind, the person whom Qingming had been waiting for should be the lords of powerful forces like Yu Qin and Gu Shao. Although everyone knew that Shuryen was the member of the Yang family, he was still just a descendant of emperor. So why Qiming had to be humble waiting for him? Everyone was quietly discussing but still couldn't find any reasonable explanation for this. All right. Under astonished eyes of other people, Shuryen revealed a smile, took out the golden invitation card, and handed it to Li Fu. Again, people were more curious about Shuryen as they saw he was presenting the invitation card. They wondered why Tang Yuanan had directly sent him the invitation card. "Young Master Yan, please." Li Fu bent down, revealing a flattering smile. "Young Master Yan, you might not have known about the 3 god sects rule. Let me tell you a little bit. The Sacred Light Mountain has the formation technique that forbids flying, which means you can only walk. Please be noticed." Shuryen faintly smiled and nodded gently. He then quickly passed Li Fu gliding effortlessly up to the mountain, which greatly surprised other people. Qingming's eyes flared up a beam of light as he seemed to be a little suspicious. He thus stopped at the entrance for a few seconds, turning his head around looking at the 3 people of Yi Tianma's group from a distance. The 3 of them were mingling in the crowd, who immediately stepped far away from them due to the icy aura from their bodies. Nobody dared to stand close to them in the range of 10 meters, which was extremely weird. Under Qingming's scrutinizing look, the 3 of them sat down while their eyes became dark and cold. They then closed their eyes, meditating. Qiming was a little startled while a suspicion grew bigger in his heart. He gently shook his head, doubtfully looking toward Shuryen's back ahead, and then followed Shuryen heading to the Sacred Light Mountain after a little hesitance. Shuryen leisurely walked forward, heading to the mountain peak with a stony face. Shuryen's right arm weighed around 15,000 kilograms. Without the profound qi, it was as if he was walking and carrying along a big mountain, preventing him from comfortably moving. The anomaly of the arm made Shuryen happy and worried at the same time. He felt happy because the hidden forces in this arm actively agitated him. Meanwhile, he was worried because this mutant arm significantly influenced the balance of his body. With the right arm heavily hanging on the right side, small sound always came up every time his right leg landed. On the way to the sacred light mountain, he had noticed it and repeatedly tried different ways to avoid revealing this strange peculiarity. Very weird. Qingming's feeble voice came up from behind Shiyan. Shiyan knitted his eyebrows, turned his head looking at Qingming's flickering eyes and asked, "What is weird?" "I feel strange because the profound qi in your body seems to have totally drained. Nothing remains," Qiming said with a cold and dreary voice. "Even if you're exhausted after fighting with someone, you can still gather the sky and earth aura to condense into profound qi after a short time later. Your body's current situation truly surprises me. My martial spirit has encountered some problems, and thus it has hardly gathered profound qi. It is probably not easy to solve this matter." Shiyan beamed a cold smile while his bright, sharp eyes stared at Qiming, then asked, "Are you satisfied with this answer?" Qingming's eyes glinted with the strange light. The dancing flame inside them became fierce, as if it could jump out at any time. "Be careful with him. The heaven flame inside his body is vibrating strongly. He might have a murderous intention." The ice-cold flame inside the blood vein ring sent out a message to Shiyan. Shiyan was neglectful. His eyes became glacial. Chapter 327, On the Edge of Life and Death. Chapter 327, On the Edge of Life and Death. I have read a little bit about the mutant martial spirit. Your situation is quite special. Let me take a look. Perhaps I can find a solution for you. The hierarchy of the corpses god sect gently said and slightly laughed. His laughter sounded gloomy and freaky as many green flames flickered in his dark green eyes and seemed very excited. After finishing his words, Qiming immediately took actions without waiting for Shiyan's agreement. With the God Realm cultivation vase, after slightly swaying his body, Qiming looked like a floating cloud, instantly appeared in front of Shiyan. Qingming's grim mask, gloomy voice, and green eyes could give people an imagination of a fire flame in a night. He stretched out his gloved hand, his fingers bent, forming a claw or a hook, and then slowly aimed for Shiyan's abdomen. A strand of strange green silk, like a small worm, appeared on his fingertips. Bringing along the corpse aura of the superb adjoined corpse's flame, it was like a living creature penetrating Shiyan's abdomen. "Thank you. Don't bother." Shiyan sneered while his left hand wearing the blood vein ring blocked Qingming's hand. The icy light flared up in Shiyan's eyes as the aura from his body became cold. In a blink, the mountain peak looked as if it had been replaced by ice and snow. However, this freezing temperature was nothing to Qiming. Swoosh! When Shiyan's left palm touched the 5 fingers of Qingming's hand, a strand of strange green silk suddenly darted out, crazily barging in Shiyan's palm. Right after Shiyan's hand had twinged, its bones instantly fragmented. As soon as the strand of green silk went through his palm, it smashed all the power that hindered its way, running along the wrist straight up to the arm. "I only have good intentions," Qiming said while the flame in Qingming's eyes was getting more radiant. "The power that I have launched might be a little too harsh to you, but I hope you understand that your hand's broken bones can easily be healed under the effect of your immortal martial spirit. As long as you don't resist it, that power of mine will not harm you further." Shiyan's face remained calm as if he didn't feel his left hand had been crumbled. There was even no sign of grimace or pain on his face. He could clearly feel that that strand of green silk was running along the vessels in his arm, going straight up, aiming for the profound qi's beam of light in his abdomen. Shiyan's sense had alerted him during the whole process. "That's good though." Out of Qingming's expectation, Shiyan suddenly relaxed, stopped using his icy power to resist. Instead, he comfortably stood still, watching Qingming's strand of silk, letting it freely penetrate into the profound qi's beam of light in his abdomen. Qingming's eyes suddenly brightened as he felt a little astonished at heart, didn't know why Shiyan willingly cooperated like that. Qiming stopped thinking, concentrated all of his power into the whirling flow of air at the profound qi's beam of light in Shiyan's abdomen. Afterward, the greenish power suddenly spread out everywhere from inside Shiyan's abdomen, running along his vessels, creeping into every corner in his body. Shiyan's face changed. Qiming revealed a wicked smile. In just a few seconds, Qingming's power had already occupied more than half of Shurian's body, running to most of the areas in his body, except for two places. One was his head, and the other was his wrist. Qingming's strand of silk emitted thousands of beams of power, but couldn't penetrate into Shurian's head by any means, as well as his wrist, impossibly took even one step further. The green light burst out in Qingming's eyes. Suddenly, thousands of Qingming's beams of power inside Shurian's body condensed and gathered at his wrist to make a sudden breakthrough with the terrifying devilish aura, which was dozen times stronger than before. It seems that the problem is on your wrist. Just relax. I will use my full power to penetrate in there to see. As soon as the 5 fingers of Qiming let go of Shurian's left hand, the light in his eyes concentrated and instantly launched out. Shurian sneered, revealing a smile that was as sharp as a saber. Right at this moment, the blood vein ring on his left hand darted many rays of red light like a shower, covering Shurian's palm. The blood vein ring contained a crystal chunk that confined the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame. Presently, this crystal chunk had been cracked open a small slit that freed the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame after a long time of confinement. It then turned into a powerful flow of silver light that destroyed layers upon layers of the blood vein ring's bondage. The dark red halo seemed to cover Shurian's entire body. As soon as the blood vein ring flashed and the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame immediately got out of that crystal chunk. The 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame condensed into a small face looked like a group of clouds converging at the top of Qingming's head. That little face revealed an exotic smile and suddenly spouted a flow of filthy air that enclosed Qingming's head. Qingming's eyes became dazed. Countless rays of light in Qingming's left eyes condensed into a face. That face was horrible, and it was putting its maximum power in condensing all of the green dots of light in both of his eyes. Momentarily, when a green halo suddenly appeared atop Qingming's head, layers after layers of those green dots clung onto that halo like stars in the sky. The disgusting air that the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame had spat out turned into some kind of liquid attaching to Qingming's halo and quickly eroded it. However, the green dots of light that were sticking onto the halo also quickly gathered, forming a mysterious formation, emitting some kind of power that startled other people. A terrifying transformation appeared in Qingming's eyes while Shurian's eyes became sharp and icy cold. Qiming suddenly felt something wrong. Shurian's eyes were cold. A trace of sarcasm beamed out of the corner of his mouth. He suddenly retracted his left hand and slowly lifted his right arm in front of his chest at the same time. Anger inflamed in Qingming's eyes. Many flows of spiritual consciousness, which were like a shower pouring down from the galaxy, dementedly shot out, attacking Shurian. Swoosh! An exotic flow of light showed up between Shurian and Qiming, bringing along an alarming energy fluctuation. Qingming's soul consciousness, which had been released, were all blocked, impossibly dashed forward. At the foot of the sacred light mountain, the 3 people of Tianma's group displayed a stern look on their faces with solemn eyes and also emitted the murderous aura. Numerous warriors who were standing close to the 3 of them had realized their horrendous aura and thus instantly moved far away from them, extending the distance between them. Qingming's soul consciousness was totally halted. Even before he could retract his hand, a soul swirl suddenly appeared and crazily attacked toward his sea of consciousness as if it wanted to smash it down completely. I have acted recklessly. Qiming hurriedly screamed out, looking at Shurian in fear and said, I actually didn't have any malicious intent. Shurian, don't be too merciless. Spare an exit for later. I don't spare anything, Shurian said with a cold face, because we will never see each other again. Qingming's eyes tragically changed. He was about to put all of his power forth to fight back. Unexpectedly, a soul force suddenly penetrated his body, depriving his control of the body. Shurian was very calm, tried to lift his right arm grabbing Qingming's heart. Arrogant brat. 2 soul flows, as soft as cotton, interfered at the critical point of time all of a sudden. These 2 soul flows were as flexible as a rattan rope binding the soul consciousness of the 3 people of Tianma's group. Qingming's sea of consciousness immediately returned to its normal state, regained the control of the body in just a blink. A powerful force massively swarmed over. Crack, crack. The bones of Shurian's left hand fragmented again. Qiming pushed his wrist forward with all of his strength. Shurian's face changed while he instantly used his right hand to launch a full power attack. Boom. Landslide-like power poured down into the ground, dragging Shurian's power into the inside of the mountain. Qiming's punch fell into the air, missed Shurian. Qiming was about to continue taking actions, but realized that the green halo on the top of his head had lost some layers of light. The little face of the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame had become clearer, slowly moving closer to his head. The green light in Qiming's eyes burst out. He no longer paid attention to Shurian, but instead, he put all of his strength to deal with the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame. A wind-piercing sound suddenly came up at Qiming's side, and a figure then slowly appeared. It turned out to be Tang Yuannan. After having shown up and threw a quick glance at Qiming's current state, Tang Yuannan couldn't help but slightly utter in surprise, "Heaven flame." "It is Shurian's." Qiming gritted his teeth, snorted, and said, "Hierarchy Tang, do you want to have this heaven flame?" Right at this moment, the sound of footsteps came up. It seemed that some people were coming. Chapter 328, Brazen Intimidation. Chapter 328, Brazen Intimidation. At the foot of the sacred light mountain, the figures of the three people of Yi Tianma's group were slightly agitated while they felt backbone-chilling cold. Their soul consciousness immediately spread out, covering the entire entrance to the sacred light mountain. The warriors surrounding were also frightened, running away to extend the distance between them furthermore. Under their horrified look, the three of them suddenly opened their gloomy and malevolent eyes, which looked like icy dew, flexed their legs, and dashed forward. Li Fu, who was standing in the front and in charge of blocking the way, now became numb with stiffened face. He laughed and hastily moved forward to prevent them. "Sorry. No invite, cannot enter." The three people of Yi Tianma's group didn't utter any words nor had any regard to Li Fu's words. Instead, they quickly turned into three flows of light storming forward. Li Fu's face changed dramatically. He wanted to hinder them, but realized that they had already disappeared without leaving a trace. He hurriedly transmitted a message up to the mountain, informing that the three of them had gone up to the mountain. The crowd surrounding was extremely astonished, bewilderedly watching the three people's figures that were quickly fading away, as well as Li Fu's urgent act in transmitting the message. They then discussed with each other boisterously. They didn't expect that the three people of Yi Tianma's group had dared to break the rules of the Three Gods sect even when they were in the other's territory. In a cave at the flank of the mountain, Shurian was remaining calm with precautions while his cold eyes stared at Qiming. Qiming's limbs were a little bungled. Under the intimidation of the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame, he had to sweat his blood in resistance and, at the same time, entice Tang Yuannan into taking actions to prevent its attack. Tang Yuannan surprisingly looked at Shurian's legs, which had sunk about 10 meters deep into the ground, then shifted his eyes watching the crater caused by Shurian's subduing palm. He contemplated for a while before giving a forced smile, then said, "Shurian, retrieve your heaven flame. Otherwise, I will not have mercy." While speaking, Tang Yuannan quietly walked over behind Qiming and discreetly sent Shurian a message. "Two people of the Yin-Yang Wonderland are on the way here, bringing one kind of peculiar treasure that can definitely dominate your soul-devouring flame. You should not act rashly." Shurian was agitated in his heart, instantly transmitted a message into the blood vein ring, then lifted his left hand, pointing the blood vein ring toward the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame. The crystal chunk inside the blood vein ring that had confined the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame suddenly flared up a strong light. A powerful attraction force spread along with that light quickly, grabbing and pulling back the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame, which was about to take resistance. After having finished everything, Shurian slightly grinned, looked at Tang Yuannan and said, "Don't blame me. Hierarchy Qiming has intentionally explored the mystery of my body, but hasn't expected to find the heaven flame in my body resulted in this situation. Seeing the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame disappeared, Qiming quickly retrieved the green halo atop his head. The green dots of light attached on that halo also returned to his eyes. Listening to what Shuryan said, Qiming coldly snorted with a trace of cruelty in his eyes, didn't say anything. At this moment, 2 figures were approaching side by side from the foot of the mountain. One of them was a man who was very good-looking with full of a mature man's charm. The other was a graceful woman who emitted the exceptionally mesmerizing aura. Any men who caught her glance would gradually lose their mind and become dazed. That was an experienced woman. Her charming body was heart-stirring with perfect curves. Especially her ample bosom, which was as if it just wanted to tear apart her blouse to come out. Her graceful rear end were big and round. Every time she walked, the left and right cheeks kept rippling, which indulged other people and made them unable to wake up from that mesmerizing feeling. The 2 palace masters of the young wonderland are here. Ha ha ha, I am still surprised with the 2 flows of swirling power earlier. Tang Yuanan smiled, looked at the 2 palace masters and nodded. Although Tang Yuanan was wearing a broad smile on his face, actually, he was secretly informing Shuryan what had happened. Shuryan understood immediately. Previously, these 2 palace masters of the Yin Wonderland were the ones who had taken actions at that critical point of time. That year when he had entered the Endless Sea, Zha Xinyan, and he had temporarily been lodging in a vessel of the Yin Wonderland. That vessel had brought them straight to the corpse burial plot number 93 of the Corpse's God Sect. Afterward, he figured out that the Corpse's God Sect and Yin Wonderland had a deep relationship. This time, when the 3 people of Yi Tianma's group had suppressed the soul of the Corpse's God Sect's hierarchy at the flank of the mountain, these 2 palace masters had used some secret technique to support Qiming. As a result, he had been able to escape the suppression and simultaneously launched a counterattack that had injured Shuryan. In the cave, Shuryan squinted, looking at the King of Earth and the Queen of Sky of Yin Wonderland with an odd face. Such an arrogant little rascal. The King of Earth slowly walked over, cast a cold glance at Shuryan and laughed softly. That year, young Tian Emperor wasn't this haughty like you. However, since then, the Yang family's later generations have been more arrogant than the previous ones. No wonder why other forces have united to sweep them out of the Endless Sea. The Queen of Sky was exceptionally mesmerizing, smiled alluringly while looking at Shuryan with meaningful eyes, said sweetly, "Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. A young man with great vigor is very praiseworthy. I like it." Her voice was very gentle and sweet, as if it could be carved deeply in people's hearts. After listening what she had said, Shuryan felt as though he was immersed in a bathtub filled with hundreds of flowers. All pores on his body opened, indescribably relaxing. Suddenly, a flow of icy aura came up from the blood vein ring. This flow was like a bucket of cold water splashing onto his body, pulling him to the light from some dark, gloomy corner. Shuryan's head was agitated, his pupils suddenly regained the brightness, looking at the charming, heart-stirring Queen of Sky who was even more terrifying than the King of Earth. Having said only a few words, this woman had already made him unable to control his mind, dazzled his head, and almost beaten him. This powerful mind control technique truly frightened Shuryan out of his wit. His face changed dramatically as he quickly communicated with the ice-cold flame, asking it to remind him all the time. The mesmerizing eyes of the Queen of Sky brightened in shock as she felt horrified at heart seeing Shuryan's reactions. In her eyes, this full-blooded Shuryan was impossible to withstand her words' magic. However, he could unexpectedly recover after having been stunned just for a short period. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 gusts of wind pierced through the air coming up from behind. Not long after that, the 3 people of Yi Tianma's group appeared next to Shuryan. They immediately surrounded Shuryan to protect him. Yi Tianma's cold eyes then aimed straight at Qiming. At the same time, they shot out a gray stream of light. Yimeng's and Kaba's countenance were unfriendly, furiously stared at Qiming, seemed to be about to launch their most horrifying soul attacks. Qingming's eyes became cold while he subconsciously took one step backward and stood together with the King of Earth and the Queen of Sky of the Yin Wonderland. The three people of Yi Tianma's group happened to be on a confrontation course with Qi Ming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth. The situation was extremely tense. Tang Yuannan's face slightly changed. He frowned and said with a serious tone, "Gentlemen, this place is the Three Gods sect. Shurian, don't do anything rash. Do you really want to engage in a fight here?" Tang Yuannan looked at the three people of Qingming's group, but actually, he was secretly using his soul to send Shurian a message. "We are now under threats of the demon dwellers. A tragedy is coming. This is not the time to cause any internal conflicts. If you want to deal with them, wait until this matter is solved. You three, I think everyone gathers here to discuss the solution to dealing with demon dwellers. Is it so?" Tang Yuannan looked at the three people of Qingming's group. Both groups of Shurian and Qingming were still gazing at each other unfriendly, didn't say anything. At this moment, Chao Jilan and Mangu of the uncultivated barbarian sect were walking side by side, approaching them. Mangu's face was pale, but his spirit was not bad. Although he had been injured from the fight with Shurian, he seemed to have significantly recovered thanks to Chao Jilan's pellets. What happened? Chao Jilan was a little bit astonished, looking at Shurian and those of Qingming's group respectively, then frowned. "Demon dwellers have not come yet, but you have already wanted to cause an internal war. Lady Chao, that little rascal has taken actions first." Qiming pointed at Shurian and said coldly, "That little rascal has released ruthless attacks. If the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth haven't been nearby, I could have been defeated by his fatal strike. I don't think that he has any intention of uniting with us to deal with the demon dwellers." Chao Jilan was astonished. She suspiciously shifted her eyes toward Shurian and then back to Qingming before speaking up. "Shurian cannot gather profound qi. How could he harm you?" She was very curious. Since she had left the manor, her head had been occupied with discouraging thoughts about Shurian. In her eyes, as he could no longer gather profound qi, his future would certainly be limited, though he still possessed some mysteries in his body. However, after only one day at the flank of this mountain, Qiming had almost tasted Shurian's fatal strike. She didn't know what the current situation was. Chao Jilan's beautiful eyes glinted with a strange beam of light. She was full of suspicion, didn't know whether Qiming was telling the truth or not. "Let's go." Shurian suddenly turned around, walked down the mountain while his eyes remained calm. Tang Yuannan's face slightly changed. The three people of Qiming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth were also surprised, didn't know why Shurian was coming down the mountain. The three people of Yi Tianma's group followed Shurian without uttering a word. "Shurian." Tang Yuannan dropped his jaw in astonishment with complicated eyes. He guessed something should have gone wrong. "I don't have any interest in the endless sea situation nor any attachments here, and I am not worried about demon dwellers' slaughter in the seas." Shurian ruthlessly said, "How many people die in the sea doesn't have anything matters to me, and the endless sea is not worthy for me to care. So, you guys can take your time to discuss the plan for dealing with the demon dwellers. I am not interested in it." After a short pause, Shurian suddenly turned around, calmly looked at Qiming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth and said, "I hope the Corpses God Sect and Yin Yang Wonderland are blessed, because besides facing the demon dwellers, you guys probably will have to deal with our attack. I honestly hope that you can handle this." The faces of Qiming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth changed dramatically. Chapter 329, Regardless of Consequences. Chapter 329, Regardless of Consequences. Afterward, Shurian determinedly left as he had said and didn't give other people a chance to explain. He followed the same path, coming back to the foot of the mountain. Tang Yuannan's face darkened, coldly looked at the three people of Qingming's group and said, "I think you three have troubles." Qiming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth exchanged looks, slightly knitted their eyebrows, but didn't seem to worry too much. They thought that they didn't need to be worried, because although Yi Tianma's group was dangerous, they themselves also had God Realm cultivation base, plus the Corpses God Sect had the King Corpse. Chao Jilan frowned, whined within her heart, looking at the Queen of Sky, Aunt Xiang, Throwing your back at him is not a wise move. The Yin-Yang Wonderland's Queen of Sky was Fan Shangyun. After having listened to Chao Jilan, she laughed out loud, blinking while the end of her eyebrows arched slightly. Looking toward Chao Jilan, then asked, "Little Lanzi, why did you say so?" The Yin-Yang Wonderland and Chao family both based in the Two to Sea, in which the Chao family was the strongest force, far surpassed the other three forces. When Chao Jilan had been little, she had been like a boy, a little wild. As Chao Qiudao hadn't seen her be like a girl, he had brought her to Yin-Yang Wonderland so that the Queen of Sky Fan Shangyun could have taught her for a while. Therefore, her relationship with the Queen of Sky was quite close, and Fan Shangyun was also considered as her master. Because of that, Fan Shangyun had started calling her Little Lanzi since she had still been a little girl, and when she grew up, Fan Shangyun still called her that way. It proved that their feelings for each other were not shallow. "Aunt Xiang, this guy Shurian is lunatic. Once he says something, he will definitely do it." Chao Jilan beamed a forced smile. Although he cannot gather profound qi, those pagans still respect him as before. "As you and others have offended him, I am afraid that those pagans will launch a counterattack. They are only 3 pagans. When we 3 unite, even if we might still be slightly inferior, but together with the king corpse of the corpse's god sect, our strength should not be less than theirs." Fan Shangyun looked a little strange. Many rays of light were shot out from her beautiful eyes, which could dazzle others' mind. She revealed a smile and said, "What? You don't believe in Auntie?" Chao Jilan shook her head, whining, "That's not their real ability. Those 3 pagans take only half of their strength. On the Snow Dragon Island, there are another 2 pagans who are even more intimidating than those 3 guys. When these 5 God Realm warriors unite, Aunt Xiang, tell me if you have a chance to win or not. Let alone that you have to face the Demon Dwellers' invasion." After having listened to what Chao Jilan had said, the faces of Qiming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth changed instantly. Tang Yuan's eyes glinted with a beam of light. He quietly evaluated Chao Jilan a little bit and then slightly nodded. "This is what I have worried about." Those 5 pagans remain calm due to their relationship with Shurian. If the 5 of them don't aim at the demon dwellers, but at you guys, the consequence is indeed unimaginable. "Why didn't you say it earlier?" Qiming said with a gloomy voice, kept feeling doleful within his heart, quietly blamed Tang Yuanan for hiding the information from him. "I have kept warning you, but you haven't listened to me. You have too much of interest in the heaven flame in Shurian's body. Your interest was unduly excessive that I had to up." Tang Yuanan shook his head reluctantly, released a sigh, and said, "I am going to talk reasons to him now. I hope he will listen to me. Otherwise, you 3 should come up with a solution by yourselves." Having finished his words, Tang Yuanan slowly disappeared in front of other people's eyes. 15 minutes later, a freaky buzzing sound came up in front of Shurian. Tang Yuanan suddenly appeared. "Shurian, calm down." Tang Yuanan made a forced smile while blocking his way. Because Qingming also has a heaven flame, he thus has had a greedy intention. However, after everything has happened, I think he would not dare to act recklessly again. Currently, the Demon Dweller's menace is right in front of us. If you cause any chaos now, the Endless Sea will truly be in more dangers. Do you really want to irritate other forces so that they will unite to deal with you? If so, I don't think you will be in peace. Shurian contemplated, didn't say anything. It was not because of Tang Yuanan's words that he would change his mind. If you act like that, the consequence will not be different from the Yang family's current situation. Tang Yuanan hesitated a little bit before continuing. If you make other people your enemies, you will be isolated and become a target of others' dispraises. Even if you have powerful and mighty forces, you still cannot stand against the entire Endless Sea, let alone that the Chao family and Martial Holy Palace are also very terrifying. If these 2 forces unite, you will have nothing except for a catastrophic end. How powerful are the Chao family and Martial Spirit Palace? Shurian asked with a low tone. If Chao Qiudao and Yang Yitian release their full power strikes without caring about injuring themselves, they can kill a second sky of the God Realm warrior. It is unknown where this amazing power comes from, but even Yang Tian Emperor also has to be wary of it. For now, only Cao Qiudao, Yang Yitian, and Yang Tian Emperor have that kind of lethal power. This is also the reason why the Martial Spirit Palace, the Chao family, and the Yang family are top 3 forces in the Endless Sea. Tang Yuannan exclaimed. Shi Yan shivered while his face slightly changed. Don't be agitated. The Endless Sea is much more complicated than what you have imagined. Qiming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth might not be your opponents, but if you make a mess in the Two to Sea, I don't think Chao family will leave you in peace. Tang Yuannan straightforwardly said, in Two to Sea, Yin Yang Wonderland, Corpses God Sect, and Uncultivated Barbarian Sect all have a close relationship with Chao family. It can be said that Cao Qiudao is the true master in Hangluo Sea. If you take actions with the Yin Yang Wonderland and Corpses God Sect in Two to Sea, Chao family will certainly not sit idly. Shi Yan frowned and then nodded, spoke up after a long while. I know. I can temporarily ignore everything in the Endless Sea. Wait until the Endless Sea and the Demon Dwellers engage in a fight. Let's see if Cao Qiudao is lucky enough to survive in the hands of the Demon Kings and the Dark Kings. Demon Kings? Dark Kings? Tang Yuannan shook his head, revealed a smile and said, impossible. The people in the underworld cannot break through the gate of heaven. Traveling through the gate of heaven is under the 3 gods' sect's close watch. After a short pause, Tang Yuannan continued, Demon Kings are unlikely to do so for sure. The gate of heaven is surely powerful enough to limit the masters at that level. Otherwise, in the past years, the Demon Kings cannot have used only a white skeleton to present themselves in the Endless Sea. Their true bodies have been constrained, and thus, they cannot go through the gate of heaven. It seems you haven't been updated about the current situation. Shi Yan released a sigh. What situation? Tang Yuannan was startled. Since hundreds of years ago, the Demon Dwellers and the Dark Dwellers have joined their forces. During that time, the 4th Demon Area and the Sevenfold Underworld certainly opened up a path that interconnected the two places. Hence, after people of the Sevenfold Underworld could enter the Demon Area, these two horrifying races have together taken tens of millions of corpses and souls to condense into the corpse-soul bridge that can connect to any worlds. Afterward, they have used the spirit powers of tens of millions of people to repair the instability of the space nodes so that the true bodies of the Demon Kings and Dark Kings can appear in the Endless Sea. Shi Yan coldly explained. Tang Yuannan's body was shaking violently while his face was wearing an unbelievable look. He looked at Shi Yan and asked, Where did you get this information? From my heaven flame. Shi Yan knitted his eyebrows and replied, It knows some ancient secrets. According to what it has said, the Sevenfold Underworld and the Demon Dwellers have been building the corpse-soul bridge together. Perhaps that bridge is about to be completed. Even though the Demon Dwellers have been invading the Kiara Sea, they haven't dealt with you guys right away. It may be because they are carrying on the slaughter in the Kiara Sea, using the spirit powers of tens of millions of people to continue condensing into the corpse-soul bridge. After a short pause, Shi Yan released a sigh and continued, I am afraid that people are currently in misery in the Kiara Sea, and all islands there have probably turned into the dead ones. The tragic situation of the Kiara Sea will spread out to the Hangluo Sea very soon. Tang Yuannan's face turned a little pale. Moreover, as far as I have observed, none of you have realized the severity of the situation as everyone has their own plans and conspiracies. Honestly speaking, I don't think you guys are as strong as the Demon Dwellers. Therefore, I temporarily want to step aside to watch how the situation progresses. Shi Yan revealed a relentless smile, then avoided Tang Yuannan and continued going down the mountain. The 3 people of Yi Tianma's group quickly followed him. Tang Yuannan was in a daze while his pupils flashed up. It seemed he was considering something. After a while, he suddenly disappeared and then reappeared in the previous area where Qingming and other people were gathering. He looked at them and said, Go to the mountain peak. I have something important to tell you guys. This matter is related to the life and death of the entire Endless Sea. Those people were surprised in fear. They were about to ask for more, but then realized that Tang Yuannan had already disappeared. Qiming, Queen of Sky, King of Earth, Chao Jilan and Mangu exchanged looks, didn't know why Tang Yuanan was frightened that much. Although they were a little bit astonished, they still hurriedly walked to the mountain peak. Young Master Yan, why are you? At the foot of the mountain, Li Fu strangely looked at Shuryan. Have the hierarchy sent you back here? The crowd was clamorous instantly. Many of them felt exultant within their heart, thinking that Shuryan had been expelled by the Three Gods sect because the three people of Yi Tianma's group had gone up the mountain, which had violated the rules of the Three Gods sect. Gu Jinglong was delighted quietly. Her small mouth curled up, revealing a faint smile while her mood suddenly became much better. However, a trace of surprise and peculiarity flashed over in Chu Yanqing's eyes. It seemed she didn't expect Shuryan to go down the mountain that sudden, and thus, she quietly speculated about what had happened up there. Shuryan didn't look at those people, remained his indifferent countenance, and followed the same path to go back to his accommodation. Look. Zhongli Dun. What? Zhongli Dun is here. The people of the martial Holy Palace have finally come. The crowd was now buzzing with boisterous discussions. Everyone raised their heads, looking up to the sky, and saw a green scaly dragon. This green scaly dragon was about 50 meters long, covered with splendid green scales. Its head was huge, and its eyes shot out a cold light. Someone whose appearance wasn't quite clear was sitting on its neck. Under scrutinizing looks of everyone, the green scaly dragon's body constantly twisted while a beam of astonishment gleamed in its eyes. This green scaly dragon seemed to be avoiding someone's pursuit. An ear-piercing screech reverberated from that green scaly dragon. The body of that level 7 beast slightly shook as it wanted to enter the Sun Island anxiously. Shuryan was startled with his eccentric visage, looking toward the sky and seemed to have realized some strange aura. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.